Very good afternoon from a warm Cambridge. It is the 2021 Vantage Elite New Zealand Road Cycling Nationals. It is the turn of the men. Boy, they're calling it the Battle of Cambridge. Slope racing up against George Bennett. 14 on 1, 14 on 2. It is about to become a very, very intriguing race. Welcome to all of our coverage. Joining me, bringing you all the expert analysis of this afternoon's occasion, is the great man himself, Greg Henderson, a man who's ridden many Grand Tours, having won stages, Commonwealth Games gold medalist, world champion on the track. Greg, it's been 365 days since the last time we saw George Bennett in one of the great rides, narrowly losing the national road title to Shane Archibald. Can he do it today?
Yeah, what a race that was just 1 year ago. What a brilliant race by the two of them. Shane Archibald, amazing victory. George Bennett, so close to the win. He's got his work cut out for him. He's up against a very, very strong team with Black Spoke. We've got 14 riders. Obviously, not all of them are in the lead right now, and we've got a lot of action happening out on the road right now. But we've heard that Bennett is on his way across.
Okay, before we just bring everybody a quick update, let's just maybe have a look at the course and get you to take our viewers at home, because it's a different course from last year. It is 4 laps. It is very much a strength endurance type course. It's probably the best way of describing it.
Yeah, it's not so much like one big, long, hard effort like we had last year where you could do a lot of damage. It's consistently hard, the whole circuit. You've got, obviously, French Pass Road, which is, it's a very steep but somewhat short, 5-minute climb. But as you head around the back there, it's always up and down, left and right, changing direction. It's not a flat piece of road at all. And then you turn left again up the backside of Tamero Road there into the feed station. So, very, very hard course.
I've mentioned it being very warm. We came here this morning. It was very settled from a wind point of view, but that breeze is just up. You've ridden this course. The environmental factor is going to play a part in the late stages of this race. Are there opportunities in crosswinds, headwinds, tailwinds for the riders?
I would say more that's going to come into play would be, like you mentioned, the temperature. The temperature is huge, and it's going to be a vital part of the game and the late starts of the game, late stages of the game.
Okay, we will go to live cameras out on the course. We will bring you some pre-recorded interviews with George Bennett in terms of his tactics, but it is a fascinating race that has developed. George Bennett is in the second chase group, trying to chase down the lead group, and we are down to 30 seconds. Now, you've been following the race, Greg Henderson, so maybe just give a little bit of a review of what has happened today. As we do look at the chase group here, which includes George Bennett, Michael Vink in that group, and Aaron Gate, the 3 race favourites.
Well, look at the 3 race favourites. It's actually first, second and third in the individual time trial a couple of days ago. They've picked up someone else from Black Spoke that was originally in the breakaway. Just letting go now. Logan Curry was in the early breakaway doing a lot of work for the Black Spoke team. They had 9 out of the 21 in that front group. So Black Spoke did everything right that they had to do. And now they've put the pressure right onto George Bennett. He's just got to lay it on the line now and do everything he can to try and get across and then try and make a race from when he gets over there. Black Spoke's job right now is to make that job of George Bennett's as hard as possible. Make it so that when he does arrive there, he's got very, very tired legs.
And do everything they can to give, in the process, Aaron Gate a bit of a free ride in that group, trying to jump across at the moment. How does one rider beat 14?
Well, I think that's the only way. He had to be patient. People will be asking, why did he miss that group of 21? Why isn't George there? Well, the simple fact is every time that George moved, the whole peloton will move. So he just knew he has to be patient. When everyone gets tired, then I get an opportunity to try and ride across. And it's exactly what's happened. He now has to ride. It's a big gap. He had 2 minutes here a lap ago, and he's already down to 30 seconds. So you can tell that he's got some legs. He's on his way across.
Finn Fisher-Black, his part of his Jumbo Visma development team, not in this, not really a strategic. We can't really help him out strategically at the moment because he's back sitting in that sort of third pack, the main pack. Surprised by that?
Yeah, I did speak to him just briefly, just off camera, and I asked him, tactics or what he's been up to, because I was his manager at the Gravel and Tar, and now he told me he'd just gone full time trial mode. So I think he put a lot of focus into the individual time trial, which showed because he not only won the under 23, but he was the fastest out of everybody. So maybe that's taken its toll also. He's in the 3rd group and he's like, well, I don't have to do anything here, but there's not a lot really happening now. The race The race is right up there.
So that gap now, 25 seconds, George Bennett. They can see the lead group. So we've got Michael Vink. We've got George Bennett, two of the pre-race favourites, along with Aaron Gate, about to very shortly bridge the gap up to this lead group and then wait for the fireworks, because why Black Spoke have numbers in this lead group? How many matches have they burnt? They've been out in front for a long time here. So 20 seconds is now the gap. How do Black Spoke play this when they do bridge that gap? And the time is coming down all the time, so let's assume they do. What do Black Spoke do? What are their tactics then? They've got Bennett there, they've got Michael Vink, and you cannot underestimate the Vinkinator.
Well, I think if you see the picture now we're looking at, that's Aaron Gate, and essentially he's had a free ride across to that breakaway. So, you know, he's a very, very talented bike rider, and he knows he's just been rolling through and off. You'll see him, you know, he hasn't sat on 100%. He's gone through and off, and that just keeps the two guys happy, stops them from arguing. Yep, I'll go through and off, but he's saved a lot of energy getting across. So I think Black Spoke's #1 card are the couple of guys that have been sitting on in the breakaway, and then, of course, Aaron Gate, if he's got the legs to follow the big attack coming up French Pass this next lap, because I'm pretty sure that's exactly what's going to happen.
Okay, still plenty of intensity in that front group, and it is Black Spoke by the looks of it, still driving it, and we're sort of in that one big sort of long line, which generally means that the pace is on. When it starts to get a little bit bunched up, it starts to look a little bit disorganised. And so a number of these riders doing their work. Scott Guyton will be barking out the orders from within inside Black Spoke's team vehicle. They would have had a pretty good understanding of how they were going to use their 14, 15 riders today. And we're in that last 50k of this road race.
So you can see now, obviously, that you know, they're sacrificing Black Spoke. They're sacrificing their last guy on the front. Now they had 3 guys mid-peloton there, 3 guys sitting in there. I'm assuming they haven't touched their legs all day. No, so it's going to be. We're going to have 3 more join this this lead breakaway very soon.
Okay, so we are just trying to give you the names, see if we can get the names of those riders in that front group. Ruben Thompson, we know, was one rider in there, but it was such a large group initially. So we'll try and bring you the names for you in that lead group at the moment.
Ollie Jones.
Ollie Jones is there.
Drew Christensen. He's there.
Keegan Hornblow in that group as well. Logan Curry. Kean Watts. Xander White, young talented rider Xander White. Jack Drage, we think, is also in that group. Drew Christensen. George Jackson.
I think you'll find that group's actually diminished quite a bit. So a few of those names that we're just mentioning are actually disappeared now. But we're into the last stages of this race now. So a lot of the Black Spoke guys have used their energy early on, so it won't be actually involved at this part of the game. So that 21 has gone down to about 15 riders now, I think.
So Michael Torkler's in this front group as well. Now, Michael Torkler, if you're not familiar, last year was the one rider that somehow managed to go with George Bennett on the one major hill climb in last year's race where Bennett pretty much stole the show. And Michael, while he survived the hill climb, didn't last too long on the flat afterwards. And we were saying earlier, if Torkler had just had a little bit more left in him, could have just held on for another 10k on the flat, it could have been a very different story for George Bennett. So Torkler in that group, and I wonder what that relationship is with Michael Torkler, and whether or not we will see George Bennett maybe lean on him.
It looks like we've got a lot of action happening right now. They can see that the lead group just swung across the road and weren't going anywhere. So someone's instantly hit out from Black Spoke. I can't see who it is, but you can see just in the background now, you can see George and Vink on their way with Gatey sitting on the wheel.
So fascinating race beginning to develop. It was always set up to be an absolute ding-dong battle. So many dynamics, so many things that unfold here. You've got the critical mass in terms of Black Spoke, but then you've got the pure genius and the pure X factor of the likes of George Bennett, Michael Vink. We know how complete he is as a bike rider. Fearless. But it's easy to come into a race and promote it, only for the race not to deliver. We're looking at the pictures. It could be another wonderful chapter in the history of this event, because those 3 names are about to make their move. They're about to shut down this leading group, take a wee break perhaps, and then roll out their race plan.
Yeah, they're just about to make contact now, so everyone in the peloton in the front group has resigned to the fact that they're joining, so everyone's taking a little bit of a break right now. You're like, okay, here they come. Take some drinks on board. You see Black Spoke set someone up the road just in case, so instantly as soon as Gady gets there, he doesn't have to instantly work because they've got one up the road. So again, it puts Black Spoke on the front foot. Again, great tactics by Scott Guyton. As soon as you see something like this happening, put someone up the road, we don't have to chase again. So it takes the pressure off Black Spoke.
So Michael Vink wearing number 176. As we go up and just see if we can find out who this rider is that has gone off the front, that's been given the team orders. Might be Tom Sexton. 167, is it? So Tom Sexton is the rider that has gone up the road, and he'll be having a look back. Is he committed? What sort of, we're going to look at the form here.
Grass there.
Sort of set up. He doesn't really look like there's a lot of urgency there. I wonder how much he's actually still got on the legs. He's been in that break for a long period of time. He's done a lot of work on the front.
He might be setting himself up exactly. Oh, there we go. They're right back on him. You could sort of tell that the urgency went out of his pedal stroke, and then you look, the camera pans back, and yeah, there's the front group. Looks like it's Drew Christensen closing that down. Yeah,
we're well and truly back into Cambridge. We'll be going past Greg Henderson's house shortly. You'll identify Greg's house because he hasn't mown his lawns.
Okay, here's that left turn at 1K to go now. So they'll be joining us here past the home finish straight in about a minute and a half, I would imagine. And I think by the time, I'd say just about by the time they get past the start finish, we'll have George Bennett, Aaron Gate and Michael Vink joined on the back of them. It'll be very close. So then it's going to come down. I think you're going to see our next big move is going to be Fringe Pass. This is where George Bennett has to take the bull by the horns. He has to really take the race to it. He has to go up the Fringe Pass. And I'm sure he's going to go absolutely full gas, and hopefully he can have one or two with him and then try and get rid of them later on. I think that'll be George's race plan right now. But what an absolutely fantastic ride by these guys to ride across a 2-minute gap. That's incredible.
Boy, Michael Vink, what a wonderful bike rider he is too, sitting there in the sort of the slightly sort of crimson, pink, purple type colours on the back. He's been under 23 national champion. He's won the Tour of Southland. And there's not too many weaknesses. Incredibly strong. Now coming back down through the start-finish line for the Bell Lap. You are watching the Vantage 2021 Elite National Road Cycling Championships. We welcome everybody in from around the country. And the crowd just about to try and pick them up. Still Black Spoke there, just dropped onto some sort of aero position. And we are in one long line, which means that pace, that tempo is still reasonably well organised. As they do come past us, we just have a wee look outside the commentary position. Still a little bit of work to be done by the big three, but it is only a matter of time.
That's a fantastic ride by George. You know, it's one of those races where you can get frustrated, you can get upset, but you just have to be patient and just go, right, when everyone else's legs are tired, I've got to do a big effort and try and get across, and that's exactly what he's done. And, you know, hats off to him. If he wins the bike race, again, if he wins the bike race today, absolutely deserved winner, because that is no mean task to ride across such a big gap when you had a team driving it on the front. It just shows the class of the man.
Yeah, and the thing is, so many people just desperately want to see the black and white jersey, the silver fern, incorporated into the Jumbo-Visma trade colours, and have that at the front of the peloton on the Tour de France or the Giro d'Italia, which I think is the target, and then the Olympic Games in Tokyo for George Bennett. Great coverage for this country, plenty of prestige for those trade teams in Europe, having a national road cycling champion.
We just saw Gady just slip off the back there. Maybe did he miss a feed? I think that might have been. Oh, there's a feed at the end here. So maybe he's just stopped to get his bottle, make sure he got it, and then he's just chasing, as you see now, just chasing back onto the back.
Well, we caught up with George Bennett earlier this morning. So let's take that interview with Andrew Dewhurst on terms of his tactics, because he knew he was not going to have a lot of friends in the peloton. Really, it was just him and Finn Fisher-Black.
Another day, another New Zealand title to race for. It's pretty special to you, aren't they, these opportunities?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've never been New Zealand champ. Been second all the time, and yeah, so it'd be great to win. I don't know if today's the day. I mean, there's not a heap out there for me on this course, but we've got to try.
There's only 2 officially in your team. There's 14 in another team. Have you spoken about that?
Oh yeah, I mean, me and Finn, you know, we are it's clear Finn's probably the strongest guy in New Zealand cycling at the moment. He was better than anyone in the TT. So he's worth 10 of their guys for sure. But you know, there is only 2 of us and there's not many hills to get rid of them. So we've got a big task on our hands, and I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do it or if it's possible to do it. But yeah, we've got to try, and you know, you always, you know, you're racing to wear the New Zealand jersey overseas, so you always find a bit extra for the nationals. And yeah, I mean, it's always a fun race as well. I'm looking forward to it, and not really sure how the legs are, to be honest. Pretty early season for us, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Good luck, mate. Enjoy it.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Well, Greg Henderson, class act.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you see, he's not sure exactly how his legs are feeling early season. As he says, you know, not a lot of races under the belt. I raced with him. Sorry, I was his manager 2 weeks ago in the gravel and tar, and he said, I'm just a couple of weeks away of top form. So, you know, he's obviously showing us today. He's just ridden across that gap. He's obviously showing us today a couple of hard weeks of training, and he's back on some pretty solid form.
Well, I can tell you there were 17 riders in this lead group. 17 riders. Now, how many of those riders are black spoke? And how many of those riders are going to disrupt this? Has George got some friends? Does he form some allegiances? Has he got people who are prepared to work for him? We will find out as we start to get towards the critical part of this last lap, as we start to get towards French Pass, as we start to get back into the countryside through some of the undulating areas, when we start to see the first attacks go. Sometimes 17 riders, yep, effective, but not always efficient.
That's dead right. That's the perfect way of putting that, because 17's too many to go to the line. You know there's going to be fireworks soon. It's just a matter of time. If I'm in that breakaway right now, I'm just thinking, stay close, stay handy. Don't let anything 6 or 7 go. If 6 or 7 go, I want to be there before this climb. Otherwise, it's like I'm going to be trying to hang on for dear life to limit my losses up this next climb up French Pass to George Bennett.
Is it a case here of 16 riders looking at one?
Yeah.
Are they all looking at George Bennett? And if they're all looking at George Bennett, how does that potentially play out for a Michael Vink?
Exactly. Skip away while they're not looking. They're looking at George Bennett. Your opportunity is get up the road, and that's a really good call, because I'd be doing the same thing if I was Vink. I know how strong. We know how strong he is solo. Scoot up the road while everyone's looking at George. Get a small gap, and then there's a potential that George has to then catch on the hill someone like Vink. So yeah, it's a really good call. You can see now though, it looks like Black Spoke are setting a fairly strong tempo. So I think they've obviously got their faith in a couple of riders who've had fresh rides. And let's be honest, they'll have chatted to each other. They'll have said who's got legs today, who's feeling okay, and who's up for the victory.
And they're sending a rider up the road too, by the looks of it again, and a few riders jumping across to try and cover that particular break. And part of the reason for those that maybe don't come from a cycling background, I'll just get Greg Henderson to explain the importance of setting a solid tempo on the front. It basically limits anybody going up the road that's outside of your team.
Exactly. So that was quite interesting, because you saw that Black Spoke were setting a strong tempo, and then yet it was Black Spoke that attacked off the front. So I think what they're trying to do is just disrupt the momentum of the peloton and try and get those small gaps that we were talking about. Maybe there is a small group of 6 or 7 that can skip up the road without the likes of George Bennett.
So we do apologise just for some of the pictures that are breaking up here, but back to the helicopter shot there. It's beautiful countryside in Cambridge, second year. And while we're doing that, we are going to bring in another icon of New Zealand cycling who's ridden in the highest level for Francais de Jour for a long time, Giro d'Italia, of the Grand Tours, these days based in Cambridge. We've got Tim Gudsell on board. Welcome, Tim.
G'day, Mark. It's been a while, mate. Andy?
Hey, mate, how are you?
Greg Henderson sitting next to you. So fascinating race tactics going on. What have you make of what you've seen so far? I mean, certainly Greg's provided his insight and the way he thinks it's playing out. How do you see this tactically? Scott Guyton, what's the tactic?
The Black Spoke boys have done everything they possibly can. You've just seen a class ride there from George Bennett and Vink to get back across there, and now we've got everything we hope to play out for, haven't we? Look at this. This is sitting in the box seat, ready to see this
okay,
really.
I want to ask you too, because you've both ridden at this level, you've both been in this situation. So if you're George Bennett, what is your tactic? Greg Henderson.
I think the only thing now is you have to go full gas up French Pass, and then, you know, he could potentially go solo. He just finished second in the national time trial. You know he can go long solo, so he won't be afraid to go solo from the top of French Pass. If he's got one with him, all the better, you know, and then try and get rid of him later. But there's only really one tactic I think that can happen right now, and everybody in that peloton knows it. It's like, watch out, George is going to go.
Okay, so if everybody knows it then, if we go back and we look at the other race favourites, Aaron Gate, does Aaron Gate have the legs? Does he have the ability on a climb which is about 4 minutes to go with him?
He does have the ability, actually. It's not the climb of last year, but there's a dark horse sitting in there who we saw do a great ride last year in Torkler, and he's floating through there, and when George lays it down, I mean, I could say he'll be the first guy on his wheel.
Yeah, so where does Michael Torkler's allegiance lie here?
With himself.
With himself?
He can race for himself. Yep, he is there to go for himself, and I can imagine that they will be they'll be ready to go.
So the French Pass Gully here. Oh, settle in and enjoy all of this one. The fireworks are about to begin shortly. Well, George Bennett, Black Spoke Racing, throw Michael Torkler in there, throw Michael Vink in there, and wow, what a race. We're around about sort of just over 40 kilometres left in this 2021 Vantage New Zealand Elite Cycling National Championships. Alongside of me, Tim Gudsell, former professional bike rider, and Greg Henderson.
Yeah, well, everyone's talking about George Bennett, but let's just take into context here how hard that ride was to get across there. It's not to say, I mean, he is human. He might have tired legs, you know, like when he gets to go, maybe he just hasn't got exactly what he needs. And there are some guys, like we talked about, Michael Torkler, he's had the free ride for the whole day, and maybe he has got the legs to go. Another guy who just set the com up French Pass, Ollie Jones, you know, he's got huge power for 3.5 minutes. Maybe it's his turn. But you know what? We're turning into that corner now, and it looks like we're going to find out in a couple of minutes, guys. Okay. All our guesswork's going to go out the window.
Settle in. Boy, I tell you what, you've got to be tough. You've got to be hard. It is one of the most brutal sports on the planet. The best rider doesn't always win, but sometimes it's the smartest rider. But you've got X Factor in George Bennett. And what does he do? Does he just go off the front? Does he dance on the pedals? Does he just look back over his shoulder and about to put everybody in the hurt box and see who can stay there the longest, who can suffer? Still one big long line, so that pace is on. Let's just see if it can be organised. Who is setting the tempo up front? Bennett there looks like he's sitting about 4th or 5th wheel at the moment in the yellow jersey. Does he go? When does he launch? It could be Michael Vink there on the front.
They're just spread across the road. You can tell they're just taking it easy. So everyone's just waiting for that one move. You go up the top here around to the right, and it flattens off for about 1 kilometre, and then that's where it kicks, and I guarantee you that's where George Bennett's going to light the fireworks on.
How much racing has George Bennett had coming into this? We know that in December he was in isolation. You talked about having done, I think, was it the Gravel and Road a couple of weeks ago. Has he had any other sort of racing? I mean, you do want to come in match fit, don't you?
He's done. Unfortunately, he's done everything just to get here for today, and that's what he's had to do. Gravel and Tar would have given him a little wee touch up, but these other boys have been racing all summer, so it makes it a little bit tougher on him, that's for sure.
Yeah, a little bit of weaving going on. You can just see them zigzagging across the road. So a few riders looking to go up and just play a few games. Another rider attacking down the right-hand side at the moment is that Bennett. We'll have to try and get a close-up to see if we can find out who that rider is. And now one big long line, the chase is back on. So some interesting dynamics going across both sides of the road here. And you can just look up,
Black Spoke have got a few cards to play, remember. They've got guys that can follow potentially up the climb. And then, of course, they've got the very fast Campbell Stewart, so that everything can come back together. They've got Campbell Stewart, who will absolutely light the fireworks in that bunch sprint and put bike lengths into anyone. So we've got Campbell Stewart, super fast. And we've got, obviously, the guys that can try and potentially follow George Bennett up the climb.
And here we go. That is Torkler that's going to have a crack across the flat section before we hit the really steep part of the climb.
See, this is where I think Michael Torkler, does he have a relationship here with George Bennett? Does he go now? Does he force Spoke to chase? Does he bring a rider back up the road and go, right, I'm going to now bridge across to Torkler, two of us get away, and hey, he's writing out a cheque saying, hey, I want the black jersey, it might be worth 5,000 New Zealand dollars to you, let's make a deal, happy to pay you out, it's worth more to me.
Well, let's see what plays out here, but why not? Why not when you've got a team of 6 or 7 other guys in there against you and everyone else sort of in a solo, position. Torkler might as well go out there and give it one for George.
Yeah, so George Bennett potentially, and I'm only assuming here, I mean, no one really knows what is going on, but if Torkler can get up the road and then suddenly we saw George Bennett attack and put a lot of pressure back on Black Spoke, who have burnt a lot of matches in terms of controlling the back end of this field and controlling the front end of this race.
And what about the young fella, Ruben Thompson there? That guy put in a climb that I've never seen before up the Remarkables in the Tour of Southland recently. This could be one for him too.
Okay, so Black Spoke look like they're sending a rider across to Torkler. So there he is, Michael Torkler, quality bike rider. He's been around the sport a long time now.
Black Spoke are just doing everything right, aren't they? As soon as they put someone on, it's like brilliant again. So it's James Oram has just gone straight across. He knows, like, right, here's my chance. Get a little head start, and if the guys do come across, I've got maybe a chance of getting either staying with them or getting back on.
Yeah, and look, that's good to see the experience head of James Oram there. You know, one of the captains of the team that he knows when it's time to go.
So just giving you a bit of a rundown on Torkler in recent times. 15th at Gravel and Tar, 7th New Zealand Cycling Classic in 2019. He's won the K2, which is a 200k ride around sort of the Coromandel that's got these days, you know, it's got a bit of history now. He's sort of been there or thereabouts. He's been 3rd in the New Zealand road race. He's been 9th previously. So, you know, sometimes it's your time, sometimes it's your year. But it just looks like there are a few more riders just starting to fall apart at the back. So a couple of riders just starting to fall off the back of this bunch. It's going to come apart.
Nothing happened yet though, look, it's all just sitting together.
Yeah, here we go into the forest, and we get the first real steep section of the climb here.
Yeah, I think George Bennett, we've got a bit of a freeze there, but he's gone by the looks of it, has he? Someone's certainly gone. Now that pace is starting to go on.
Yeah.
We can just see the first attack go, and Bennett has now gone. And can anybody answer the questions of the great man? He's just dancing on those pedals. He's just looking back. He says, I know what wattage I can do up here. Can you match me? I'm one of the best hill climbers in the world. He looks back. He says, you're looking hungry, boys, and I'm about to feed it to you.
He wants to get there, and he needs to get to Torkler before the summit.
And look at the work here. Look at the attrition rate now. Somebody's literally just thrown a hand grenade in that group of 17, and they've been blown all over French Pass. Strung out.
They'll be in bits and pieces at the top here, absolutely. But yeah, let's just get a camera on the front and see exactly what damage has been done and see who's in contact. Remember, you've got to have, it's only a 4.5, 5 minute climb, so it's not like George is going to be able to take a minute out of people. He might be able to take 30 seconds, which is actually catchable again. So let's just see the damage, and it's going to be very interesting when they crest the top. How much is the time gap back to the next group, and how quickly does the group behind get organised again? Like if you go across in small numbers, it's best to look behind you and go, okay, I've got a couple of guys, I'll use these 2 or 3 guys, I'll wait for them and get them to help me to go back across.
Yeah, well, the word is George Bennett has attacked, so Bennett has gone. The question now is, where is Aaron Gate? Where is Michael Vink? Who has the ability to go with them? There looks like 1, 2. These 2 riders up in front. James Oram there, 166. Michael Torkler, 184, who just rode superbly last year on the one big climb, the one big opportunity that George Bennett took last year. Aaron Gate now looking to try and bridge across is the word we are getting. It is game on, ladies and gentlemen. Wonderful race developing. Settle in and enjoy all of this.
This is brilliant championship racing, and this is what you want to see at the back end of a national championship. We've been looking for this for quite a few years now.
Yeah, wonderful stuff. Just losing our pictures there alongside of me. We do have Tim Gudsell, a man who rode a number of Grand Tours over the years, Fonse de Jure for a long time, and of course the great Greg Henderson, bringing you all the coverage, all the expert analysis, and just look at that. These guys now are just pedaling in squares, aren't they? They are just suffering. And it's just a simple case now of survival for these back markers.
George is not going to wait for anyone either. He's going to go straight across to them, and he's not going to look back. He's going to put his head down and just bury it all the way home. It's undulating, it's hard, it's twisting, it's turning. It's not flat when you get out the back like we've talked about. It's still a hard bike race from there, so it takes a lot to catch a flying George Bennett.
Yeah, I think the thing is, though, if Aaron Gate gets across and then James Oram's in that bunch, we've got 2 riders from one team, haven't we? And this is then, where does Michael Torkler sit in the mix? Well, who does Torkler work for? Have the deals been done?
Well, out there today, you know, the conversations change when you get into the back end of the race, and you got to do what sometimes you got to do what you got to do to try and win.
I remember I once living in France, I saw you begging on the street corner. You cyclists don't do particularly well. You're prepared to race for food, aren't you?
Oh, we race for anything,
a couple
mate.
of deals done, and you're more than happy to go and suffer for somebody else.
It still looks like Torkler and James might still be off the front of the bike race. It doesn't look like George is bridged just yet, but as they're cresting now French Pass, so like I said, it's not a very, very long climb. So it's not like it's a 10, 15-minute climb that George can take a lot of time. So it is the deciding factor. Obviously, the bunch has blown to pieces, but again, it might not be the minute that he needs, you know, it might only be 20, 25 seconds.
Oh, Black spoke too, so I think 14 riders signed in. There might have been 15 that did sign in, and we might just be down to 2 at the front end of this field. Such has been the attrition rate again, just demonstrating the class of Bennett.
So Gatey was trying to go across there. He bridged the gap, but then the pace was just too much. We've just heard that Gate has been dropped.
Wow.
Wow, that
Aaron
is
Gate
all
has
on.
been that. Aaron Gate has been dropped because he is the team captain for Black Spoke. He's the guy that they're riding for. Look at this, look at the suffering, look at the form here. They are all over their machines. There's not that smoothness and that pedal cadence. You can see that upper body movement, searching for that right gear, leaning on the bigger gears now.
Once you get down to these small groups as well through the back end of Tamiro, the climbs they're actually a lot harder than what it is when you're running in that peloton of 40, 50 guys.
We were saying that from the women's race. I mean, some of these climbs out in training are easy, but when you throw it at the end of 170 odd kilometres, when you've been at sort of threshold for 2 hours, it can feel like climbing Mount Everest, can't it?
Oh, exactly. They'll come over the overpass of the expressway there with a little bump, and they'll be feeling that at the end of the 170 Ks.
Oh. So we stick with us. We'll try and get back out there and give you all the live coverage from the action out on the streets here of Cambridge, but it is game on. And just so many people wanting to see George Bennett take this jersey back to Europe. And so many people said, look, he deserved to win this race last year. He understands bike racing better than anybody. We'll just go back and have a look at this bike race. I'll get you, Greg Henderson, just to take us through. So what? We're up French Pass on the right-hand side of that picture. And then what? Bruntschool Road.
Absolutely. And that, again, like we mentioned in the ladies' race, it's not easy. It's up and down. It's changing in pace. It's not just sit on one power number. And which, again, if George is solo, it is really good for him because he's such a light frame that changing in pace and changing in power is really easy or comparatively easy for a lighter framed person than a heavier framed person. So the ups and downs are a really good place for George to take some more time. So yeah, this bike race is far from over.
Exactly. There are some serious still gradients out there as well, isn't there? They're not just rollers.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the wind here, because you can sort of see as they get round Bruntschool, whatever might have been sort of a tailwind, if say they had tailwind or any sort of breeze up French Pass behind them, that suddenly sort of, starts to become a bit of a crosswind. And as they get round Tamiro Road, those wind changes all the time. But they've had 3 laps. They've had 3 opportunities to get an understanding of what the wind is doing. And this will be starting to come into their tactics now. How do I use that to my advantage? Oh, I remember last lap, this last 10K, it did have a reasonable crosswind. Can I use that to my advantage? If we talked about a little with the women's race.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like I talked about, maybe over the top of the climb, it's almost, you have a look around and see where you are in comparison to everybody else. And then, like, even though it is a hard situation and with some wind, it's fast. 3 and 4 riders is still faster than 1 rider.
Okay, this looks like maybe the front end of the race, George Bennett, by the looks of it, in the yellow. And it looks possibly like a group of 4, which probably will include James Oram in there as well, because he was there with Torkler off the front initially, went prior to the start of French Pass. And they were smart. They knew, Torkler particularly thought, you know what, maybe I don't have the legs. If I go up the road first, they pull me back, I'm still on the top as I go over the crest.
So there's 5 left at the front of the bike race, and I reckon I can spot a young Ollie Jones there who just set. It looks like we've got another 3 trying to come back.
And Aaron Gate will be in that group, you can guarantee that.
And potentially Campbell Stewart. So if that comes back for Black Spoke, Black Spoke are then again in the box seat. They've got the 2 fastest guys in the bike race.
How good. And look, we're about to come into the next set of like really tough little kickers, and it will be all on.
So heading into that last 30K, and just look at it, there is a group of 5, then there's 3 behind. Basically, we're down to 8 riders within that. Some will have that fuel gauge on E, others, well, they'll be closer to sort of midway, if we're going to use that as a metaphor. But fascinating, still plenty of opportunity here. At what point does George Bennett go again, Greg Henderson? You know this course well. When does he just dance on those pedals one more time and just take those power levels to a level that a lot of these riders haven't seen?
I think the key here is now for George is any time the road points uphill, just put some pressure on, because there's no way of knowing how everyone's legs are feeling. Everyone's on the limit right now. That's not comfortable. Nobody's comfortable out there. So every time the road points uphill, George has to put some pressure down just to try and make them hurt. And you can see right now, he's on the front. It's just about to go uphill, and he just puts on some pressure. Michael Torkler there. It is Ollie Jones. It's Drew Christensen. Drew Christensen, very, very smart bike rider. He's never far from the action. So you've got an elite 5 on the front, and you've got a group of Black Spoke by the looks of it coming back.
And they're looking at Aaron Gate, aren't they? And they're saying, let's stay away from Aaron Gate. Certainly that is the thought, I think, of George Bennett. And I just wonder whether he's got Torkler in his pocket here.
Yeah, now you get you really get that flip side. Now Gatey's on the, he's chasing with his teammates. He's going to come back and they're going to hit the next climb.
Well, the boys have been dictating all day, and now suddenly the bully's been bullied.
It is back on them as well. And look, these other guys are not mucking around. They're all committed to pulling turns here.
Yeah, nobody's waiting.
And here comes George again, looking maybe just peeling across, but I think they'll jump. We'll get an idea too, won't we, in terms of if deals have been done shortly with some of the tactics. A little bit of a gap just opening, so George may be having a crack on one of the descents here. So really starting to open it up, and that chase group is now having to work even harder. At what point do they just wave the white flag? Aaron Gaydon still difficulty. I think it's fair to say he's not comfortable at the moment. He's got some riders working for him, but look at what Bennett is doing. He is just looking to try and rip their legs off with 30k to go.
Every time that road points uphill, you'll see George out of the saddle giving it some, because he has that much of an advantage uphill over everybody else. He's world class. He's literally one of the best in the world when the road points uphill. So use that to your advantage. Every time the road points uphill, get out of the seat and give it some. For you, it might be 80%, but you know that everyone on your wheel, it's nearly 100%.
Well, I was talking to him this morning, and I said, give us an idea of the type of watts you were pushing last year. And he said, over that 4 hours, 5 hours, it was 5 watts per kilogram of body weight. I want you to try and put that into context for people, Greg Henderson, considering that maybe the first hour of that race, they're sort of in cruise mode. And so you could take that out of the average, and suddenly you're almost at 6 kilograms.
Yeah, well,
6 watts per kilogram.
6 watts per kilogram, maybe 7 when he's going uphill. Like when he's absolutely pushing, there's no question he'll be above 7 watts per kilogram.
Put that in context for the average cyclist.
Well, like I said before, it's I've only been retired for 3-4 years now, and I still go okay on the bike, and I've got a functional threshold power of 3.5, and he's doing double that, so it's incredible the speed in which they go.
Tim Gudsell?
Oh, it's absolutely phenomenal. It's actually a power to weight ratio that somebody of George's sort of stature can achieve. A lot of us probably never achieved it.
I definitely never achieved it. I know Andrew Dew, sitting alongside me, has never ever achieved it.
No, it's actually, but like we said, it was a hard ride across. There's no question. Yeah. And the fact that now there's 5 guys in that bike race and potentially another 3 coming across, George's still got a lot of work ahead of him. He's had the hardest job here. He had the hardest job to bridge that 2 minutes. He had to take it to them to climb. He decimated the field. He's got it down to 5. But like we talked about, the climb was only probably 5 minutes long, so maximum of 30 seconds, and we've got 3 more guys coming across. I think very soon we're going to have, we think we're going to have a break of 8 or a front group of 8.
We understand that they have bridged, but how much damage has been done? It's one thing bridging, but at that next attack, at what point it's like that bungee cord that just stretches and at some point it breaks. You talk about the big wave surfers who get hammered in a big wave surfing competition. They go under once, they come back up. Their jet ski can't grab them out. The second wave hits them. They reckon by the 3rd time, you're basically in a world of trouble, and it's not dissimilar here, isn't it? How many times do you go to the canvas before you don't get up?
Well, we've always said you start a bike race with a box of matches, and it's like you've got to be the smartest one in how you play them. George's box of matches probably a little bit bigger than some of the other boys, but look, I think he's using them all out there right now.
Smokes a few more ciggies than everyone else.
We will try and bring you live coverage very shortly, just having a few difficulties there, but stick with us alongside of me, Tim Gudsell and Greg Henderson, bringing you all the analysis of this year's Vantage New Zealand Elite Road Championships. And there was a lot of talk about it. It's all been about George Bennett. Will he get just completely and utterly manhandled here by Black Spoke? But I mean, if Black Spoke don't win this, what does it mean for them? I mean, it's their race to lose. 14 riders.
But let's be honest, they've done nothing wrong. They've played the game absolutely perfect. Yes, they had the numbers, but they've done absolutely perfect. Scott Guyton, the DS, he's a class bike rider in his time. He's super clever, super tactical, but and he's done nothing wrong. So he's now got himself again potentially in the box seat. Again, he's got probably one of the fastest bike riders if Gates got back across, and why not ride for that scenario? I'd be very confident going to the line with Aaron Gate, how fast he is over the last 200 metres.
Okay, we're going to try and just bring you a list of those riders in this field. So we'll just try and give you that group of numbers, if I can just... Okay, 36. So we've got Jack Drage, George Bennett. Michael Vink, the Vinkinator.
The Vinkinator has made it. That's fantastic.
Ryan Christensen. What can we tell us about Ryan Christensen?
He's a little talent, that guy. I rode, actually, he was in my team at the New Zealand Cycle Classic and Gravel and Tar. And honestly, from the 2 races I did with him, one of the technically most aware bike riders. So watch for him in the final, because he'll know where to be, when to be at the right time at the right place.
Are you taking some credit for him?
No.
173, Ollie Jones in that group.
I do look after him, actually, Ollie Jones. And yeah, we had a small conversation last night about, he goes to me, Hendy, how do I win this bike race? And I said, mate, you've got to get up the road early, exactly what he did. And I said, don't be afraid of that French pass, because over 4 minutes, you've got one of the most powerful riders in this race. And exactly, so he's made front group.
Mark Stewart, Scottish guy in that group, 181.
A little bit of a dark horse there. No, I'm not sure too many of the boys will know him.
And Michael Torkler.
Yeah, well,
So,
I mean, we know what Torkler's capable of, don't we?
Yeah, there's always that dark horse, isn't there? An opportunity to introduce yourself to the wider cycling community. So a group of 7 trying to bring you those pictures from out on the course, because there are some opportunities here for some real pressure to be put on that group of 6 by Bennett. Is there anybody else? Can they? Who else has the ability here to hurt? I mean, is it in Michael Vink's best interest to try and shake a few?
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Vink will. He knows that Vink's that real all-round type rider, and he can really go on some of these smaller climbs.
Okay, Jack Drage, number 36, we can tell you, has been dropped. The group is now down to 6.
Wow, he's a talented little bike rider. He's off to France this year, actually. He's just signed a contract over there. So he's one of our up-and-coming climbers, actually, with real talent. So yeah, he obviously put in a lot of work, make that front selection up the climb, and then he's just obviously maybe spend his bickies a bit too much.
Bennett has attacked again, is the understanding from out on the course. George Bennett has gone again. I'm trying to bring you those live pictures, ladies and gentlemen. But the star of New Zealand cycling, the Jumbo Visma talent, 26th ranked in the world, one of the best hill climbers, has gone again, just trying to rip this field apart, just have them basically just fall apart. He's attacked on the descent, we've been told, so he's gone on the downhill. Now it comes down to technical bike handling skills. It comes down to who hasn't burnt too many matches, because it's about concentration at this level. They'll be hitting speeds, what, Greg Henderson, 100 kilometres now?
200, let's say 200.
200, maybe take it to 3. It is George Bennett. 6 watts per kilogram of body weight. Let's make it 200.
But the reason you attack on a downhill is simply because you'll get some nice pace leading in possibly to a next uphill. And if he keeps that power on, that extends your gap. I mean, like we said, he just has to keep hitting them, keep hitting them over the back of the head, and eventually the legs are going to give way.
And in these types of situations, this is where the real level of these guys come out. Unfortunately for the young fella, Drake, he's gone now, but he really got to have a chance with them.
7-second lead, we're hearing 7 seconds. Is it enough? George Bennett, 7 seconds, gone solo. Now, where does Torkler fit into it? Who's prepared to chase him? Who's prepared to let him go up the road? Back with the live pictures. Greg Henderson alongside of me. We've got Tim Gudsall, just a fascinating contest. Look at the heart in the man. What a warrior, what a street fighter.
Oh, it's 7 seconds. I wouldn't get too excited just yet. It's showing his intention, I would give it that. He's prepared to attack, but I don't think 7 seconds is going to get you far.
No, but suddenly a group of 6 becomes 3. If you're looking at those pictures, I think 3 have popped, and I think 2 are going to bridge across. I wouldn't be surprised if we've now got a group of 3 riders. So slowly, Christensen, we understand, has joined them. Is he the Scottish rider, is he?
No.
No, sorry, my apologies. Hamilton boy, a local boy. So there we go, one of your own in this group, maybe of 3.
He'll know this road like the back of his hand.
Oh, he's so technically clever, this guy. He's such a smart little
boy,
bike
this
rider.
is set up, though, isn't it, for Bennett at the moment, with a couple more little niggly climbs to go, bit of a gap. And look, Torkler on the front of that chase group doesn't look to be like a lot of urgency in terms of the way they're turning those pedals. So Michael Torkler, how much of a part is he going to play in this? We'll only really know at the finish of this bike race. But Torkler looking to try and disrupt. There is not a lot of organisation in that chase group.
No, look, you can see the guys on the back there. They've looked across at each other and they're sort of shaking their heads going, no, I cannot come through. I'm not closing that gap.
Well, fascinating bike race. Wow.
That's a good gap, actually. That's worth investing in. You look over, if you're in that breakaway up the front now, you look over your shoulder and you look at your mates that you're with and you go, yep, boys, let's put some pedal down, because this is a gap. And now look, the 4, 5 behind, it's starting to swerve all over the road. That means they're looking at each other.
Question is, where's Black Spoke? Where's Black Spoke? 14 riders on the start line, and they're not there. Torkler is off the front. Bennett and Christensen are the 3 riders in that front group. So Michael Torkler, wow, what a class act. What a bike rider last year.
It looked like Vink was pulling some big turns in the back there. He doesn't want to be left behind either.
This is fantastic.
This is just stunning. And even if they do bridge, at what point on the course does George have another crack? You guys know this course well.
Yeah, there's still some little fresh kickers in here. It's going to be quite an interesting. We've got this nor'easter blowing. It's not it's not a prevailing wind around here, so they haven't seen this on this course.
So is that a crosswind
today.
at the moment? Talk to us about what that wind is doing for these riders at this point.
This is there was some headwind sections around here, and then as they wrap around towards Tamira, it starts to come back over on their right-hand shoulder. So it'll actually be an advantage shortly if these guys can get up to the next corner and around past Waterworks Road.
That'll chuck them into a little bit of a tailwind into them, and then that gap just expands. As soon as you get a tailwind behind you, you know how much faster that makes. And what we used to always say in the pro ranks is it's hard to catch a fast-moving pellet. It's hard to go faster than fast. So if these three guys are working together, but you can see now from behind, it looks like they are starting to work together well. It's not a huge gap. You can still see them.
But George, I mean, he's the guy that's going to have to take the initiative here. He's got two riders with him, but how spent are they? How spent are they? Those are the questions that have been asked. And now that chase group gets a little bit of a sniff. That gap is coming back down. But then Bennett will just go again.
Every time
Four
it goes
riders in
uphill,
that group.
Every time that road points up, they just have to put the gas. You see Torkler is riding super hard.
So
here.
Stewart in that group, we understand, might have bridged across or been part of that group initially.
He's the Scottish track rider, actually. I'm surprised he's surviving in this heat. He's a brilliant track rider, like World Cup gold medalist, World Championship medalist. So yeah, he's very, very powerful, very fast. Looks like Vink's on his way across if he can.
Yeah, that chase group though now starts to look like they're just a little bit disorganised. They had an opportunity to bridge. If you just look at them, a few guys there have popped. They're not on one big long line. A couple of guys have set up. They've waved the white flag. And now Michael Vink and now Bennett looks over and he says, yep, okay, I think we can shake him. Vink trying to now come across. What does Bennett do here? Does he look to try and put it down and really put Vink into the hurt box and say, well, even if you do get on, mate, you're only going to have 1 or 2 matches left in that box.
Oh, exactly. Look at this. Torkler, he knows that this is it. You put it all your eggs in this basket and you just go for it.
Oh, fascinating stuff. Look at the heart in these four riders. I cannot describe to you just how physical and how mental this is at the moment. You can't eat an elephant whole. You can eat it in small pieces. They're just breaking it down piece by piece. Vink, though, can he grab on? He'll come across. He's so strong. But at what point does Bennett go again?
1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 5 riders. That shows to me that Aaron Gate does not have the legs. Otherwise, there's no way he would let Vink go across solo. So it looks like we're going to come down to 5 bike riders. We've still got Jack Drage. Young Jack Drage is still in the front group there. I thought it was a bit strange that he got popped. It was just some misinformation that we had. So that second group, we still have young Jack there, the young climber heading over to France. Michael Vink.
Vink's gone. Yep, we talked about the number of matches left in the box and not too many got back on, but then Bennett's gone back to the front. He's put it down. This is just like fartlek training. At some point, you give up. At some point, the bungee cord goes. Vink fights, though. As he got back on again. Fascinating. What a bike race. Vink's climbed back in. What a warrior. Wow, Michael Vink, the heart of the man. You can't coach this. This is an inherent quality.
There he goes, just making contact now.
That's the second huge time trial for the week, isn't it? Look at that. What a ride back there from Vink. That's absolutely incredible. 4 guys swapping off as hard as they can, and he's bridged that gap.
Unbelievable. Well done. Exactly. And then he had the hard ride across too. He had basically a 2-up time trial with George Bennett to get across. So we're all talking about George Bennett and how hard it was for him to get across. Don't forget Michael Vink did exactly the same thing.
23 kilometres to go. Total distance is 174. We talked about this prior to the race. 140 kilometres of hope, 34 kilometres of truth. And now the questions have been asked of them. Can they come back with the answers? George Bennett, we know the class of the man. He is really just controlling this race. Tactically brilliant. He has just really, well, I don't know, has he outthought Black Spoke? No. I think he's just X Factor. It's just X Factor.
It is pure X Factor there. George Bennett is in, and Vink along with him. They're in a class of their own here. They have just stepped across this, and here they go. Having a little chat there at the back of the break. Quite interesting to see what happens now.
Yeah, look at the big Scotsman on the front. Is it Greg Henderson?
Yeah, that's Mark Stewart, not Mark Stewart. I was going to call him Campbell Stewart.
So
there
Mark Stewart on the front. Now George goes.
But they
And
still
there'll be
have
a
to
cou-
remember right now, 5 of them, they cannot play cat and mouse yet. They still have to develop that group. You cannot give the chance for Aaron Gate to come back, because as soon as it doesn't matter, when you're a sprinter, it doesn't matter how tired you are, it doesn't matter how fatigued your legs are. In the final 200 metres, a sprinter is always going to win a sprint. They know how to get to the finish line. So you just have to make sure that gap is unbridgeable. So the 5 of them right now will be going flat knackers.
We've got 20k to go, Greg. Tim, how many more opportunities are there here in that next 20k realistically for George Bennett?
Oh, look, there's only one really. Well, let's call it 2 actually, because once they come over to Miro, which is going to still be a tough little climb, you get onto Aspen Road, and look, these little rollers that you would see on your your standard Sunday ride, they become brutal. If George wants to go on one of those little kickers, you can't give him 5 metres.
No, and George looks like he's just sort of moved to the back of that lead group there, maybe just taking that little breather, just having a wee drink on the drink bottle, just setting himself up. It's just like that coiled spring at the moment, waiting to explode again.
And into a really fast section of the course here, we're going to come up into a nice little flat section where we're going to turn, and they're going to pick up that tailwind we were talking about before, Mark.
If I'm George Bennett right now, I'm just sitting there and I'm just waiting. I'm establishing that gap, making sure I establish that gap, and then I think about hitting them as many times as possible. It does. In the final stages of the race, the road doesn't even have to point upwards. Just keep hitting them, because eventually that acceleration, that movement of mass, it takes it out of it takes your toll. It takes it out of your legs. But first, you have to establish that gap. Do not let a sprinter come back. If you let a sprinter come back, you're racing for second.
Okay, I'll give you a bit of an update on Stewart in this lead group. So he won the points race at the Commonwealth Games in 2018. So he's a track cyclist. So if it comes down to a sprint, no one's talked about him. No one's even mentioned him.
But to remember, have to think, he can't actually take our jersey. So the riders will know that. So they can use him as much as possible. If it comes down to a sprint, I would plant myself on his wheel. He can win it, absolutely, or take me to the line, and I can still take the jersey, things like that. People, they already know that. These guys in the break know, okay, he can't take our jersey, but he can win our bike race.
You just sort of sense, Greg, you just sense that gap. It's 20 seconds. And here goes Bennett now again on the attack. Looks back over his shoulder and dances back on the pedals. Can he shake 1 or 2? Chalkler jumps on him immediately, I think. But George Bennett now starting to just do what he does best. Making way, he's one of the best hill climbers in the world. In fact, now he just sits second wheel here, so that pace is back on. And now does Bennett look to launch off the front again?
Oh, look, these guys are flying up through this climb now. They're absolutely all on. But there was the first opportunity that just back there that they had a look back, they saw the gap, and they saw what was now going to play out in front of them.
Okay, so Bennett has a wee chat. What's been said here, boys?
Beer at the pub tonight.
$5,000 if you ride for me.
How's your Sunday going?
So Christensen in that group, third in the gravel and tar this year, so we know he's got plenty of strength. It's hard, that sort of hybrid form of riding that's become very popular between off-road and road cycling on these hybrid bicycles these days.
Yeah, like I mentioned, super, super clever bike rider. I really like the way he rode. He's
Here he goes,
aggressive.
Bennett goes, George goes, and who can jump across? Can anybody go with them? Bennett goes. They're looking to try and close. George Bennett, is this the last big gasp? That gap now significant. They're all looking back over the wheel. George Bennett on the attack on the downhill now. They don't look that organised, but they'll pull him back in. But how many more times? How many more times can they handle that?
It looks like Stewart there, straight onto him, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Mark Stewart's chased that gap down.
No Talkler.
There
I
might be a
think he has
counter-attack now.
cooked.
Now's a perfect time to launch over the top of that when no one's expecting.
Well, shake another one off. I don't think Michael Talkler's got much left in the tank, because he sort of was looking around going, I'm not chasing that.
You can see the impetus has gone out of this break a little bit, though, because I'd be a bit nervous also, too. If George keeps hitting me every time the road goes uphill, I'd be starting to think, you know what, I'm not going to do as much as that anymore. So he's got to be careful that he doesn't overcook them here. As they come through, is this the final feed station now, over the top of Tamero Hill? So it's a downhill now for the next 5K, so not a lot's going to happen for the next 5K. And then we're going to turn into Aspen, and then there's some chance for some crosswind, some headwind.
Yeah, Bennett's taken on some last-minute refreshments, but Vink there just dropped into fifth wheel, and look, he just wants to take a little bit of respite and freshen up those legs. He gets down the hill there, and then he can really use some of that flatland power that he has.
George may be saying to Michael Vink, come on, mate, come through. You're just going to sit there all day, mate. You're going to sit there all day. I thought we were working as a team.
Talker's just snuck off the front.
Yeah,
it's one of those
in that position's gone.
Inconspicuous attacks where he just sort of rolls off the front. Who's going to chase me? Sometimes when a gap like that happens, you look under your shoulder and then you put the horsepower down for 30 seconds. Next minute, you've got 50 metres up the road. It hasn't happened. They're onto him. Vink's come through. Bennett has forced Vink through. He's obviously very aware of Vink trying to take a bit of respite.
Oh, that was that conversation earlier, wasn't it? You know, that they worked to bridge that gap initially, but now it's this, you know, they understand the sport.
Oh, exactly. Look, they had to be the best of allies there for, you know, a couple of laps, and now who knows what the situation is out there. They could be just straight, you know, warriors. They're going back against each other.
Oh, fascinating. Wonderful bike race. We wondered whether it could live up to last year with such drama, with Archibald getting Bennett with literally about a K to go. Look at the speeds they're going. Vink goes now immediately. Bennett looks to jump across. This will shake one or two, though. I reckon Torkler might be gone here, and Torkler trying to cover across and cover. He did a lot of work here. Now another counter-attack coming, and Bennett goes. So Stewart over the top, and Bennett goes with him. Vink comes across. 5 becomes 4 very quickly in a moment like that. Wow.
Look at the legs of Stewart there. He just didn't even look like he was breathing as he cruised over the top there.
That's that track power, though. You see him just accelerate over the top there. George was full gas out of the seat. They're not going slow there, but like I said, here's the downhill, very fast. There's not a lot that's going to happen on this downhill. That was the last attack over the top there, and that was their last chance to exaggerate that gap as they attack over the top of a climb, over the crest, and then you take the speed into the downhill because you hit the downhill just before, slightly before everyone else. But you can see now it's fine. We've got 4 back together, 5 back together.
Yeah, Michael getting back on there. I thought he was gone, but you just wonder on that downhill. But they are absolutely flying, hitting 100k an hour probably, and in that aero tuck position. And now it just has a wee look over the shoulder.
Yeah, look, it looks like Stewart has got some good legs here. He can make this race really difficult in the last few kilometres.
Really good. I watched him race in the New Zealand Cycle Classic, actually, and, you know, maybe that's the 5 days of racing that he needed because, you know, he wasn't showing anything special. I spoke to him after the Admiral Hill stage, and he was really suffering in the heat on that day in Wellington, or Masterton. And, you know, it's not cold here today, and he's handling the heat very well. So he's done a lot of work. He's in great condition. To be in this front group here at our New Zealand National Championships with some of our best climbers, he's going
and George
very,
Bennett
very
goes
well.
again. Bennett realises he's running out of road and opportunity, so he just goes back and dances on those pedals, uses that time trial experience once again, and just seeing if he can shake a few more, seeing if he can just break it, get rid of Michael Vink out of this group. But the big question does come down to Stewart. But again, he can't take home the national title, can he? Got the road. Let me jump across. Let me bridge that gap. I don't care if you come across the line first. I just want my jersey. I want to take it to Europe.
Oh, look, exactly. You'd love to come across the line first. But look, if you can get the jersey, that is the goal.
So let's talk about this part of the course, Greg Henderson.
Yeah, it's my favourite part. It's the downhill part. But no, it's fast down here, and like I said, you know, we're going 70k an hour, 60k an hour, and then we down at the bottom here in about a couple of k's time, we turn left into Aspen, and there's a couple of kicks and lumps and bumps, and like we said, if you're going out for a Sunday ride, it doesn't feel like anything. At the end of a 165, 70k ride in this heat, they feel like women Alpe d'Huez.
So the best thing really for George Bennett here at the moment is the fact that Mark Stewart is looking so good, but he can't actually take it overall. So if Stewart is the guy that he doesn't end up shaking, it's of no thing. All he does is to sit on the wheel and says, hey, welcome to New Zealand. Good on you. Well done.
Yeah, look, he is potentially the fastest finisher in that group now, and, you know, George can use that to his advantage.
So boyfriend of Emma Cumming, we're told, New Zealand track rider. He got stuck here for the lockdown, and now he's come and changed the dynamic of the New Zealand Road Cycling Nationals. Don't you love the Scottish, eh?
He actually rode our New Zealand Omnium champs on the track as well and cleaned us all up there. He won those. So he's got some talent, this boy.
Yeah, but Greg, if you're only doing, 3 watts per kilogram of body weight, you're never going to do that well these days, are you, in that?
Wasn't racing me, mate. So anyway, Christensen. Honestly, don't forget that name. He is, honestly, he's got some speed. He's got a bit of everything, this lad. He's a class bike rider. We're talking about Vink. We're talking about Stewart, we're talking about Bennett. We've got Torkler there, but also we've got Ryan Christensen. He is a clever little bike rider. Just keep an eye out for him. I wouldn't be surprised. And if I had to chuck my hat in the ring, I wouldn't be afraid to put my money on Ryan Christensen.
So he does race in the UK. He'll be aware of Mark Stewart, having raced in the UK a lot. Now just trying to pick up and see what is happening in terms of the dynamics of this race. Still on that downhill stretch at the moment. You can see that there are 5 riders in that group. Bennett still seems to be happy sitting about 4th wheel at the moment.
Yeah, and you can see they've brought the cars into the gap now there. They've come across. So unfortunately for those 3 guys behind, that's potentially their day over.
That means there's a minute gap. They only let the cars in when the gap's at a minute. So that's good to know, and like the riders in the front group will know that. George will know, okay, my gap's now. If they haven't got race comms, they'll know, okay, I've got a minute. And so coming in now, he's got a couple of opportunities uphill very shortly. Here they go now as they turn onto Aspen, and the road automatically, almost instantly kicks upwards.
Yeah, these are the last really little uphill opportunities that if they want to use them. But it looks like the wind has been behind them now, and as you can feel here, you know, at the finish line, the wind has been picking up all day long. So let's see how it affects this this last little section.
The thing with these time trial specialists, Vink, for example, you can't give him 10, 15 metres once we hit the flat section in the crosswind. If you give him 15 metres, you might not see him again. This is all to play for still. This bike race is far, far from over. And any one of these 5 can win.
You can just suddenly see that just drop off and pace there. So they're clearly on the ascent here. And
George
goes straight up the right-hand side of the road. Who can go with him? So George Bennett, really one of the few last opportunities he's got. He does go. Can anybody cover him? Bennett putting it down. Look at that. Ow! That is just pain, ladies and gentlemen. How do you do that? It's not just the arms and the legs. They're breathing razor blades at this point. And he just sits back, but he's hit them hard again.
He's had a big day in the saddle, hasn't he? He has had a huge day in the saddle.
And it's only a matter of time, I think, before he goes again.
Every time that road goes uphill, mate, he's going to launch something for sure. You saw he put Vink straight in trouble there. Vink's just coming back now, just regaining contact. We go downhill for a little section here, and then instantly we've got one more little kick, and I think that's the uphill done for the day. Here we go. We've got a little move off the front. I wonder who's there taking the opportunity, a kind of a counter-attack off the back of George Bennett's move.
Yeah, look, a little lull in the speed and a look around, and you just take those opportunities. And this could be where the race is actually won or lost.
By the looks of it, gone again. Has he? Bennett's gone again. There we go, up the road this time. That is significant.
Dangerous.
That is significant. That
There
is
it
gone.
is.
George Bennett, the big move of the
There it
day,
is.
ladies and gentlemen. Settle in. Here we go. The courage of this man who came so close last year. Now he has just put it down. He is blowing these 4 riders off the back. Is it enough? Can he hold on here? Is this the significant move? We have lost cameras. We will try and bring you the updates. Wow.
Well, look, this is the section where you can get just out of sight quite quickly. They've got a couple more rollers, and if he gets through to the next straight and they look up and then they're like, where's he gone? This could be his.
Just remember, he finished second at the national time trials. Like, he knows how to go solo. He just goes straight into time trial mode. He's so aerodynamic in his position, and when he races, he's super fast. So that would look like a substantial gap. And just remember, like I've always said, at this stage of the race, everyone's legs are tired. Everyone is hurting.
And it's funny, when he won the Tour of California, it was the time trial stage that he just surprised you. I think he finished 4th that day, and that was enough to... it's like he just stepped up in that, didn't it? It's something he's had to work hard on. He knows that to become a complete bike rider, he needs to be able to time trial.
He worked on that through 2018 so hard, and we've been talking about him going uphill, but he is actually just one of the strongest guys on the flat as well.
He proved that to close a 2-minute gap with Vink, and then now he's put himself in big trouble. It's like he is the strongest out there. He's showing it today. He's done the hard ride across. He's now put everyone is in the same boat in that situation now. They've all got very, very tired legs, and George has said, right, I've got to go.
Well, Mark Stewart's chasing, which is good for Bennett, because if he does bridge it, hey, he's got a guy who can't win it.
Well, as long as he's not bringing 4 other guys with
No,
him.
but I understand he's gone across. He's trying to go across on his own. So that is the outstanding we're getting from out on the course. Stay with us, ladies and gentlemen. This is live coverage here on Sky Next of the 2021 Vantage New Zealand Elite Road Race. This is the men's race. George Bennett, one of the few riders at the highest level in the sport out in New Zealand who is back here for this. He desperately wants to win it. We want to see him in that jersey in Europe. And look at him. Look at him. What a class that. The man from Jumbo Visma who grew up in Nelson, who was inspired to ride a bike at the age of 17. He just has not had the opportunities. He had 14 riders from Black Spoke trying to beat him up. Everybody's looked at him all day. and just X factor, class has been the difference at this point in the race.
Look at that, he's come out into that open field there. He's got 10 seconds on the group of 4 behind him. Now, all it is a little opportunity. If they look around, he's gone.
Well, Michael Vink, though, we saw him. Vink only just got on that big attack in that last climb, didn't he? And so, Vink, how much power does he got?
Well, Vink is, we saw Vink ride a time trial like, just basically as quick as these other boys on Friday. He's definitely got the legs, but this is championship racing. This is where you find out the real level of bike riders in the back end of a 175k hot, hilly, hard day.
Are we looking at the most underrated sportsman in New Zealand sport? So much kudos goes to so many other athletes across sport. This is truly global. This is one of the toughest sports on the planet. It's a lonely sport. It's physical, it's mental, it's full of good days. You can be the best rider and still not win, and you have to deal with so much adversity. But for George Bennett, today, does it culminate with the National Road Champion? Does he join the likes of the great Graham Millers, the Jack Swartz, the Gordon McCaulays, and some of the great names of yesteryear in terms of adding his name to a list of legends of the sport?
Absolutely, this looks like the move to me. He doesn't look laboured in his cycling position. He looks strong still. He's still peddling that cadence. He's in good nick. It's going to be a strong ride to get across to that. And unfortunately, I don't think anyone is coming across to that. It's a brilliant ride, well deserved.
I want you to describe for me the hurt that he's in. You guys you've been track cyclists. You know what it's like to bleed, but in this position, what's going on? Describe that feeling to people listening and watching this.
Oh, look, you just literally get to the point where you block out your mind. You do not let your mind tell you you cannot do this. It is just an absolute numbing position.
15 seconds, we understand, is now the gap. George Bennett, 15 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. Tell you what, great crowd gathering down here in Cambridge too at the park, watching the big screen. And wouldn't it just be so special to have the streets lined here and welcome home a guy who's carried the sport in recent times for New Zealand.
Absolutely flying. He is
Look at the gear that he's in.
He is flying. He's got the gap. He knows how strong he is. This is World Tour legs. This is the difference. Now to catch that, it's going to be very, very hard. The 4 of them working together, they have to almost talk to each other and go, right, if we want a gold medal, we have to talk to each other and try and ride.
What gear
together.
ratio? What's he got on the front there? 53? Is he bigger than that?
Could be pushing a 54 for today. He knew there could be some tailwind sections. But you've been there, Hendy. You've been to the World Tour. You know what it's all about. This guy climbs with the absolute best of them. Is he another level of like New Zealand pro bike riders?
Absolutely. This is the guy that we're going to see, I think, and I've said this a few years ago, on a podium of a Grand Tour in the not-too-distant future.
And certainly a stage winner at some point, eh?
You can see the gap now. It's just out of control. And the guys in the back now will know. They'll be like, oh, my goodness, I think I'm riding for a silver medal here. What a fantastic ride. Absolutely, George Bennett deserves this.
And they'll start looking at each other at some point, won't they? Start thinking, well, I want to get myself on the podium here. And then they start looking at each other. We know that he's just in a big, steady state here, George, isn't he? He's just sitting there. He'll be right on that threshold. He might be tapping a little bit more into it. He'll be looking at his power meter. He'll know what his numbers are, and he'll know what his legs are like. And you've already mentioned it, Greg Henderson, but you never look at facial expressions of any athletes. Always look at the form, and the form is good. We're probably about this time in the race last year, you just started to see just a little bit of a kink in the pedal, didn't you? You just started to see him pedal a little bit in squares. We're not seeing that.
No, he's in great. I remember pointing it out to you last year. I actually tapped you on the shoulder and went, uh-oh. But he looked fantastic, and it's just now he's just absolutely riding on his threshold. He's just doing 100% time trial now from here to the finish. He's got about 7K. He's got about 10 minutes of racing left, and he is just bearing himself to the finish line.
Understand from the commissar's vehicle, he is riding at 50 kilometres an hour here at the moment, 50 kilometres an hour. So this guy is in world-class time trial pace. I mean, they beat him up early, didn't they? You had Black Spoke, who just launched. He was stuck there at the back. He had to bridge across. He went across with Vink. He went across with Aaron Gate. He then got into that chase group. That chase group was still more of Black Spoke and some of the other teams here. And he's just worked them over.
Put this into perspective. He was around about 4.5 to 5 minutes down earlier on in the start of this bike race. At lap 2 of this bike race, he was 4 minutes back.
With 1 lap to go, he was 2 minutes behind, and now he looks like he's going to finish 1 minute in front.
And what I love about him, the man is a patriot. He loves this country. He wants this jersey. I mean, you can go and ride the Tour de France. You can go and ride this year. You can be a superstar of the sport. But he goes, you know what? I want my black jersey. I want to take it to Europe. You know what? I don't want to ride the Tour de France this year. I want to ride the Olympics. I want to win a medal for my country. I'm aware of the history. I'm aware of the heritage.
This is huge. There is a number of other riders that actually do. You know, they had the opportunity to come home and do this, but George was the one who sacrificed 2 weeks in a hotel room, you know, just wringing out his underwear and riding his trainer.
35 seconds, the gap, ladies and gentlemen, 35 seconds. The 30-year-old from Nelson, 58 kilograms wringing wet. Pro for 10 years. I remember sitting down in Christchurch when he was riding for Radio Shack, and that day he worked for Hayden Ralston. He crossed the line with Hayden. Hayden, as the team leader, ended up winning the national jersey. I was lucky enough during the women's race the day before to sit down on the couch and have a chat to him. And here we are, 9 years later, and it's his time, and it's his turn. And it's not about sharing it. This guy's done it on his own. This is one of the great displays, one of the great performances in the history of this event. Simply remarkable.
If you back it back down to how the race started, exactly. He had to be patient. He had to wait. He had to wait till everyone had tired legs. And then he rode across to this break, and then he knew every time that road points uphill, he has to hit them, and that's exactly what they did. And here's the thing. They all know that he was going to go. Every time it goes uphill, they knew he was going to attack, but they couldn't do anything about it.
Now he's taken the level. He's gone at 55k an hour, ladies and gentlemen. He's riding at 55k an hour solo after having ridden about 170 kilometres in the legs.
Oh, exactly. Look, and
look at him. What a warrior. Look at the heart in the man.
Oh, he's just got adrenaline going now. It's just such a nice feeling. This far out from home, you know you've got a bike race. You know you're taking your national championship jersey. At the moment, the feeling, he can't feel anything. He's just burying himself.
And a message to our mainstream media, to the main television network, Sports News Tonight. Let's not lead with rugby. Let's lead with this guy. Let's put him up in the time of COVID. Let's give us a sense of nationalism. Let's show what a young man out of Nelson can do, what a young guy out of any small town in New Zealand's capable of doing.
I believe his focus this year is the Giro d'Italia. You know, who knows? He could be on the podium in the Giro d'Italia this year with the national jersey on his shoulders.
Well, 4 kilometres to go. A large crowd gathering here in Cambridge. Hopefully they can make a lot of noise. Let's bring him home. I know how much this means to him. He was so disappointed last year. He was almost in tears. You saw Shane Archbold so happy, and Archbold deserved it too because he had been through horrific injuries and terrible bike crashes, and you felt for one, but you had to celebrate the other. But for Bennett today, it is his time. It is his turn. It is his moment.
He's a deserved champion, there's no question, and he's just proved himself here. He's so versatile. We always talk about how good he is uphill. He is world class. He climbs with the best in the world, the Primoz Roglic's, the Pogacars. He climbs with all those guys. He works for Primoz Roglic. He's this last man in the mountains, and now look at him. He's solo on the flatlands, putting time into everybody.
This is a special ride, isn't it? We got to watch this guy really deal to the world of cycling last year at the Tour de France and go up that level, and now here he is in front of us back home.
Wonderful stuff. Oh, I've got to say, I'm sitting here, I've got goosebumps. I'm even getting a little bit emotional because I just love to see talent fulfill its potential. I just love to see grit, guts and determination. You know, boy, first in the Tour of California back in 2017. 10th in Vuelta a España in 2016. You know, you go back to 2013, in fact, with Ralston. It was second in that New Zealand road race, you know. And as I say, it's 9 years later. It is his time. Gravel and tar, you know, he did that race as a lead-in. And Greg, you were there. You witnessed how well he rode that day, something that he won't be that familiar with, maybe even a little bit risky, knowing the nature of that type of terrain. He comes now into the street of Cambridge, and I can tell you, you can't see the pictures from here, but from our commentary position, the streets are lined. They are going to give this guy an incredible, incredible moment because it's been 360-odd days since this time last year where he came so close, so incredibly close. And I'll always say this, gentlemen, the greatest ingredient you can have in any athlete is passion and desire, and the only way you test it is adversity. He had adversity last year, and boy, he's bounced back. That lead now with minute 13.
Oh, hasn't he ever? You think what he was thinking at going through the start finish, the first lap. Where was his head sitting on 4 minutes down? Now I've got to come back from this. He knew he had the legs, but if your head falls off at that point, how do you do it?
This will be emotional. This will be emotional for him. This will mean a lot. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to watch the Giro d'Italia. You might still see him at the Tour de France. You might still see him at the Tour de France, depending on the way the team plays out. What you're going to see is the black and white jersey at the front of the peloton on the big climbs. The road racing champion in New Zealand, alongside the road racing champion of Kazakhstan and Denmark. And it'll be George Bennett, the 30-year-old from Nelson.
This is a great ride here. I'm so impressed. I mean, it's like we said, 4 minutes down to 2 minutes down to catching them, and now a minute in front. It's just unbelievable. It just shows the class of the rider and the endurance that this man has.
Yeah, and look, well done to that chase group too. Well done to Michael Vink, Michael Torkler. You know, you talk about Mark Stewart, this track cyclist who played a big role in cracking this field open. And ironically, isn't it, it's these individuals, these teams, these riders not associated with the trade teams that have actually been the bit part players who have been, you know, have been major contributors to the way this race has played out.
They have done so much in that middle section of the race and that back end, but now when you get down to this really gritty part, the last 15 Ks, it's 15 Ks after 160.
1K to go, guys. We're inside 1K to go. This is just a beautiful moment for George Bennett.
This is for the microphone. The people of Cambridge, let's make some noise. He's a K away. Let's welcome one of the great performances, one of the great bike riders.
He's just about to make that final turn onto the home straight. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is.
Oh, here he is. I don't even really want to say too much. You're witnessing one of the great performances, one of the great rides. Second last year,
there he is.
George Bennett swings around. He'll know that for 2021, it'll be George Bennett, National Road Cycling Champion. George Bennett, great New Zealander. George Bennett, you deserve this, big fella. What an inspiration, what an athlete. Enjoy the moment. Deserved winner, Jumbo Visma, stand up. Nelson, be proud. Yeah, baby. Oh.
He will be
Look at him.
Over the moon with that.
Look at what it means to him.
He is so happy right now.
Remarkable.
There's the partner.
Yeah, she yesterday did the Tarawera 100 and the 50 came for the second of the women's race there, so she's a great athlete in her own right.
I think she won it, actually.
Finn Fisher-Black's father there.
Oh, nice. What a great ride. Just an absolute dominant display, and what a deserved win. It's so great to see George Bennett take what he finally deserves, and how good is it going to see George Bennett on the biggest mountains in the world with the New Zealand Championship jersey on his shoulders. What a tribute to New Zealand cycling. Thank you, George Bennett.
Well said, well said.
Absolutely. Look, like you said before, 10 years this guy's actually having a crack at this race, and now he's pulled it off today, and pulled it off in such fashion that just shows the class of the man.
And we're going to have a sprint finish for second, third. Of course, we've still got the New Zealand Under-23 jersey up for grabs as well.
Let's not forget, we've still got a silver and a bronze medal up for grabs. They'll be rounding the corner any minute now. I'm going to
throw this one over you, Greg Henderson and Tim Gunsell. You boys can bring this home and call it.
You can see a little bit of a crosswind established here, so it's going to be interesting in what position they open the sprint. Who's going to open it up? Who's going to line it up? Here they come now.
And here we do line it up, and what is it? Vink there, maybe looking, no, Vink, Torkler possibly. Michael Torkler leading it out, and Michael Vink about to jump across his eat. But you've got to keep an eye on Mark Stewart, wouldn't you?
Oh, through the cones there.
Somebody's had to go through the cones.
Oh, look, it's anybody's race here. Torkler's got a kick on him after a long, hard bike race, that's for sure.
Vink's gone. Boy. Oh, it's tight up the inside there. Drew tried to find some space that was not there, but it's Mark Stewart will take second. It's Vink that'll take third, but in actual fact, second place will go to our own Michael Vink, and third place will be Torkler, and Christensen will take fourth. Okay,
that's a great ride from Michael Torkler.
Mark Stewart did finish in second place, but he's our Scottish friend, which finished, and there's our under-23 champion. Jack Jage is our under-23 champion. What a fantastic bike ride from young Jack.
Yeah, give us a little bit more on him.
So he's a fantastic rider from Christchurch. He's coached by the famous Terry Jide.
I was talking to Terry prior to the race. Well done to you, Terry.
Well
I know
done,
you're
Terry.
listening.
Congratulations. And he's actually signed a nice contract with a French team, and he'll be heading over there to...
This is a young man who can climb like nothing.
Absolutely.
Yep, really young, but boy, can climb, can't he?
And obviously he's got the endurance,
50
can handle the heat.
kilograms or something.
He is seriously...
They really came home strong too, didn't they? We're not far behind those other guys. Not at all.
Yeah, but...
Yeah, and so I want to come back to this because it is about trade teams. Now, where to now for Black Spoke?
Well, I mean, like we said, they didn't do anything wrong. So they can't, go home and start pointing fingers because they did everything they could. And to be honest with you, and, I think this is a fair summary, they were just beaten by...
A class above.
Exactly. Yeah. A better man on the day. And that's all. They did nothing wrong. It just came down to it.
They were going to always be looked at, and they went out there and instigated the race themselves, which is a great, a great tactic. That's what they should be up to do. But George, I mean, what have they thought? George had those sorts of legs today.
Who knows? But George knew he did.
Because you said 2 weeks ago in that gravel and tar event that I'm maybe 2 weeks away from my best form.
That's what he said.
You know, he'd spent 2 weeks in isolation in the hotels. There was a lot of social media there about he'd been sitting on wind trainers and various things and staying fit, which must be arduous. And he's come back. He actually needed a break because he'd had a tough year with that crash during the tour and stuff. And then just amazing how quickly these guys can get themselves back up, eh?
Oh, exactly. And I mean, we were saying earlier that this guy finished second in the Giro de Lombardy in Italy at the back end of last year. That is one of the toughest one-day bike races, and you've just seen, that bike rider show his dominance here.
He actually won Piemonte this year, last year. Like, what an amazing one-day classic
what a
to
gutsy.
win.
Yeah, and then second, what about 3 days later, wasn't he?
And then he's dropping the guys like Nibali and things like that. It just shows the class. It is world class. And for Black Spoke, they're a brand new team. They're new on the block. They've got a great team of young Kiwi bike riders. And yeah, they took it to the race. They had the numbers, and they did everything they could to have a crack at George.
But I think that's an interesting point. He didn't actually need the climbs today to win, did he?
No, he didn't. I mean, we said, look how strong this guy is on the flat. He is capable of riding that 55, 60 kilometre an hour on the flat, even at that, what did you say, 58 kilos?
But to be fair, if the climbs weren't there, he wouldn't have been able to bridge those gaps. So and essentially he did need the climbs, because the climbing is where he made up the time. The climbing is where he hurt a lot of the legs. The climbing is where he kept punching the legs and just keep punching them and punching them. So yeah, okay, maybe he didn't ride away on a climb, but he used them to his advantage.
Okay, both of you guys have been in Europe. What does it mean to have that black and white jersey now? At the highest level in the sport.
Couldn't do it, mate. Got second 4 times.
Oh, no, we've talked about that a lot. We've talked about that a lot, Greg. Yeah, we've talked about that a lot, mate. That's why I got Tim in, because, I just needed somebody that had actually, maybe gone a slightly higher level. But no, in all seriousness, what does it mean?
Oh, it's fantastic.
I mean, what does it mean to have a road racing champion within your trade team?
Instant respect. It's like the first person you go up to at the start of the season, you go and shake their hand and say congratulations. You probably watch their race, because normally the national title is in Europe is a week before the Tour de France. So you go and say congratulations, well done. You know everyone's in top condition, so you've beaten the best in the country at their top condition. That's why Australia and New Zealand, we have ours in January or February, because we know everybody's going really well in January or February because of our summer months. Europe does the same. They have their national title in summer, and then it's the best rider. You always, the national jersey, whatever jersey it is that stands out, they just absolutely look fantastic, and you go and shake their hand and congratulate them.
And the scary thing for the fact, George Bennett, this is really what he had, the gravel and tar race in this. I mean, he's not even close to his peak, is he, really, when you look at what's to come?
Oh, isn't that exciting?
He'll be building towards the Giro, won't he?
Exactly, to think what is to come. The Giro and if the Olympics Games are on the cards this year, they are his huge targets.
And that's the thing we have to try and distinguish is he is fit. Don't get us wrong. He's done a lot of volume. He's very fit, but there's a difference between being fit and race fit. Where you've got a lot of race miles in your legs. And at the moment, he's absolutely fit and he's quite fresh, but he doesn't have those really hardened race legs yet. Wait till that comes on board and see what we can achieve later on in the season. Awesome.
Yeah, I guess the question now for everyone else is, how do you beat this guy at a local level here? When he, I mean, there are some very good riders clearly in Europe that couldn't get back, but wow, I mean, yeah. Now we're just going to try and bring you those under-23 results. So Jack Drage won the under-23. You've heard Greg talk about him, so congratulations to him. Big year ahead for him in Europe. Keegan Hornbloem was second.
What a great ride.
Just tell us a little bit about Keegan. And
well, those boys, again, they're all over there racing in Europe. And look, the young Ruben Thompson has just signed himself for the development FDJ team. I feel quite proud. I felt quite proud when I heard that.
Yeah, you were on that team, weren't you? You sort of almost claiming credit for him, eh? But
you
guys sort of claim credit for these young guys, I feel a bit sort of inadequate.
Oh, it's quite nice to see another Kiwi sign onto a French team and sort of ruffle the feathers of them, and really get in there and stick it to them.
Just don't mention Bastille Day 1979 when the All Blacks were beaten by the French at Eden Park. They always bring that up. Every time I was in France, that's all they ever brought up. In '99 Rugby World Cup.
We've actually got a few riders in the FDJ now. We've got Pithy as well.
Yeah, Lawrence Pithy there signed up for the development team as well. So great to see. Like at the end of the day, what do we see here? We just saw just this base of talent is so huge now. It is so big, and it can, it's how exciting is that?
Look, I don't want to get into the cynical side, but I also think too, because the sport's really had to try and clean itself up, and I think New Zealand riders just have a really good reputation as being sort of clean, green, really hard-working bike riders. I think that's opened the doors too. And then you've only got to get a couple of guys like yourself, Greg.
The role models like myself.
That's right, the role models. And you, Tim, of course, the role models. But and then they sort of say, hey, look, these Kiwi boys, they're pretty laid back, they're pretty easy to deal with, they're prepared to work hard, they do as they're told, and they open up. I mean, Greg did as he's told his entire career.
Yeah, honestly, didn't he?
But the thing is, like when they do, you did right. When they sign someone from overseas, whether it be New Zealand or Australia, they know what they're signing because we can't afford to fail. We can't afford to fail. If we fail, we go home. We probably don't come back to Europe.
Okay, let's go to Andrew Dewhurst, and everybody's stoked. Ladies and gentlemen, the great George Bennett.
Thanks, Mark. Indeed, the roar that went up, George, when you made that final break and you put some distance on the other guys. Ironically, it may have been on the flat when you did so. The roar that went up here, this is very special for so many people here. How special for you?
Oh, awesome. It's so special. It's such a strange race. It was such a hard race. And, in the final kilometres, I was thinking a lot about wearing the fern in Europe. And, that really gave me, I was absolutely on my knees. We've been, my two mates, Vink and Gady, the three from the podium, split by half a second on Friday. And we had left ourselves with so much work to do, and we had to go so hard to close that big gap. And then I didn't really know how I was going to win from there. We'd run out of hills, and we'd had to do so much work. And, when I sort of got a gap, I really started thinking, okay, this is going to be awesome. On the, really, I was running out of legs, but I just kept thinking about wearing the fern. And all the support that was out there, and just representing New Zealand this year out in the Giro and all the big races coming up. So, it's not the biggest race on my calendar, the Nationals, but it is a really important race to me, and especially when you win.
And was last year going through your head at any stage? Did you allow yourself that thought? Did that motivate you and spur you on even more?
Oh, mate, ever since I started road cycling, I think my first Nationals I was second, and then mountain bike Nationals I was second, and in Christchurch I was second, and last year I was second, and 2 times in the TT second place, and I just was thinking, shit, someone's going to come. And then, it all sort of is sort of like the lottery. You buy enough tickets, you're eventually going to get one, and it's such a hard race to win. And there's a big target on my back, and I was really, really grateful for the support I had, not just from the public, but in the race. I had some really keen allies. I mean, my old teammate from Livestrong back in the day, Michael Vink, he just committed with me early on, and he just got stuck in, and he was so strong. And then I had, Finn, the future of New Zealand cycling. He drove the race. And I even called in some old support. Tom Filmer, a friend of mine back from Nelson, he's just picked up the bike again, and he played such a crucial role just at one moment, just to keep the race close enough. And all those little things. If I didn't have that help out there today, I was not going to get even close. So thanks to everyone, and it was pretty awesome having so many people cheering for me out there. It really felt like I've missed crowds this year, and it's been really special to have everyone roadside, and I knew I had my girlfriend Caitlin out there, and Rob Reed and Warren and Jim Black in the car, and it was just really special day for me.
Pretty special weekend as well, with Caitlin winning her race yesterday, I believe, in an ultra-marathon event. So success is coming your way this weekend. When you were down by 4 minutes or so early in the race, in that main peloton, any concern, any panic at all?
Yep. Yeah, I was. I wish I could say I wasn't panicking, but it was actually, I started getting really itchy feet thinking the race is going up the road. And actually, Finn said to me, nah, we've just got to stay calm. And I thought that was wisdom beyond his years in that moment, because I started thinking, okay, we need to start attacking on the flat. And, we just had to back ourselves that we'd have enough legs. And we did. And we only did just, but we did. And, you need everything to go right, and this is, I need to remember this every time a race goes wrong. I think about the one, yesterday on Friday I missed out on the title by 0.7 of a second, and you just think, shit, that could have gone my way, but it could have gone Gady's way. And today this one went my way, so it's really special.
You'll forgive me for keeping you standing here in about 35 degrees because it's taken long enough for this moment to happen. I want to make the most of it and share it with everyone here watching live and watching on our coverage. You talked about the Fern and how special that is. It was special enough when you had no legs. You were close to 60k an hour on the flat. It's amazing, isn't it, how you can be motivated in those moments when the tank is empty.
Yeah, I said this morning in an interview that, you do find a bit extra, and it's like when, you go to the Worlds or you go to the Olympics and you put away your trade team uniform and you pull on the Fern. And today I really had the feeling I was riding to wear the Fern. And, this year especially, it's made me realise how special being a Kiwi is and whatever's happening in the world. And we nearly didn't come home this year, and we're really lucky. I'm really happy that we made the decision to, and we made it all worth it. And wearing the Fern overseas is just, it just represents all the support that I get around the world and all the messages and all the stuff. And, I don't always have time to reply, but I do see it all, and it does impact me. And, it's just so special. And I really want to thank everyone for coming out.
It was one heck of a bike race. It's one that will go down in history as one of the greatest. Does that, again, play... I mean, you're a cycling historian. You know what's gone on. I mean, you know the race that you were just in. That was one heck of a fight the whole way through. Yeah,
we were... there's been some big fights before. I remember my old teammate Ralston in Christchurch. He made a big comeback when I finished second. And there's been a couple of awesome races, and I'm very aware of the greats that have gone before me. New Zealand cycling has some really major players in the world scene, and they've generally been put into domestic roles, lead-out men and classics guys and things like that. And so I'm quite lucky that I'm able to have my opportunities as a rider. And I'm really, I know how awesome those riders were in front of me, and they were national champions. And it comes with a bit of responsibility, to carry the Fern well and get stuck in and try and represent it overseas.
George, I've got to say, you look like you rode down here from the dairy. You look pretty fresh, and amazing results. George Bennett, your winner, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, what a class act. He's humble, isn't he,
George Bennett, with those thoughts, and we'll now bring Mark Stewart in. Mark, I know you feel like you kind of crashed the Kiwi party here, but welcome. It's nice to have you stuck here in lockdown. What a bike race. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I spent most of the race spectating that race. I kind of didn't... I found myself between like half the time racing it and half the time being like, this is really cool to watch. And then up the hill, like, it was so impressive when those guys caught us. And like, fair play to George, he deserved that one.
If there was anywhere to be stuck, has this been the right place for you? Obviously, you've been able to get out there and race, and you've raced on the track, and now here, wonderful performance. You had great legs today.
Yeah, the change of culture and the contrast of just how friendly everyone's been here it's really been phenomenal, eh? It's going to ruin it for me one day if I ever leave.
Well, you might stay for a little while longer. And in terms of that race in the final 30 or 40k, the attack after attack after attack, you know about George Bennett, obviously, but wow, impressive, wasn't it?
Well, I think you look around that front group and Black Spoke speaks for themselves. Then you've got Ruben Thompson and lots of quality riders there, Ollie Jones. So I think everybody knew it was going to come down to that final climb. And then when George and Michael and Gatey caught us, you kind of sink a bit because you're like, oh, this was already going to hurt. And now it's going to hurt even more. So it kind of came down to that, and probably a lot to do with the heat. That last 30k, it was just who probably eaten and drunk enough during the race.
Well done, mate. Congratulations. Mark Stewart, ladies and gentlemen, visiting us from Scotland. And second place on the day today, as we now look to catch up with... Okay, so Vinky's not available for us at the moment, Mark and Greg, but wonderful to hear from George Bennett, and wonderful to hear those words on the back of a very first victory. How special to take that Fern over to Europe. Mark?
Yeah, thank you to Andrew Dewhurst, and alongside of me, Tim Gudsell and Greg Henderson. I've got to say, just so incredibly humble. What a wonderful ambassador for the sport, eh?
Absolutely.
I mean, just the people he acknowledged, you know?
Yeah, it's just like, he's just a homegrown Kiwi, isn't he? It's like he's a superstar in this world of cycling, and I still don't think he's at his like peak. I think, like I've said many times, I think he's our first serious contender to stand on a podium of a Grand Tour. I'm not sure which one. yeah, what fantastic to come out in February on Valentine's Day, get a special kiss on Valentine's Day from his girlfriend. I mean, how fitting is that? I think he did that on purpose. He just wanted his Valentine's kiss.
Oh, come on, Tim.
Oh, cut it out, you two. So, no, exactly. What an ambassador for New Zealand, and it's going to look, like we said, let's think about last year. We got the jersey last year, and it was fantastic to see Shane Archbold leading out sprints with the New Zealand jersey on, and it was fantastic, so visible in the bunch. And now we're going to have the absolute opposite. We're going to have the New Zealand jersey at the front of the mountains. You know, it's going to be, again, so visible with such a talented athlete. It's great to see. Yeah,
once we do just have those final results confirmed, we will bring you the podium presentation, which is one of the great traditions in cycling. I mean, yeah, he talked about some races over the years where we've had some great finishes. This is my 9th New Zealand Road Cycling Nationals. I was lucky enough to be here last year for the drama. I was there when Hayden Ralston, as he mentioned, won in Christchurch, I think, on 4 occasions. And, you know, what we saw today, it just enhances, it just helps grow the sport, doesn't it? But it just helps it, you know, we know how big the Tour de France is, but it also, to me, it just says, look, this stuff is happening here in New Zealand. Get along, start watching it, you know, come out. You know, we no longer have to look overseas for the stars. We've got them here in our backyard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at the talent that we have, the talent that we've got there. There's the amount of, even though they might be development jerseys, but these guys are signing with the biggest teams in the world, and they're here racing in front of us on a championship course, which really gave us what we were after today, didn't it?
Yeah, it'd be nice, you know, this time maybe next year, but going back here in Cambridge, and if COVID can clear up, you can get Shane Archbold, Patrick Bevan, Jack Bauer, Tom Scully, Bewley, Dion Smith. I mean, what a quality bike rider Dion Smith is, you know. So, boy, you know, we talked about the depth in women's cycling. It's the strongest it's arguably been in terms of the road program. But has New Zealand road cycling ever been stronger?
Oh, look, I actually don't think so. Those names that you just read out that weren't even on the start line today, that's just incredible.
No, it's just because the pioneers.
Yeah,
paved the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I think actually the year that we made it to the World Tour level, the year prior, Julian Dean was our only World Tour pro for that season, and we turned up at the Giro, and we had Hendy, Jules, myself, and Craig Geter, the spanner. He was actually probably the most experienced World Tour pro we've got.
It's true, isn't it? We're just such a small number of us, and now, yeah, the depth. But it's dead right, though, because like we touched on before, it's the directors and the teams, they know what they're getting now, you know, whether we've come from a track background, we don't necessarily need that anymore. We know we've got classy road riders, and it's they know the work ethic that they're getting.
But it's almost like you guys sort of, you know, Julie and Dean, and there have been others prior to that, and you sort of paved the way and said, hey, look, it can be done from the small country of New Zealand you've got in there. Now we're starting to see critical mass in terms of New Zealanders. Now you've got a George Bennett that said, right, guys, I appreciate that evolution. I'm now going to show that New Zealanders can win.
Yeah.
And then every other starts looking up to him and goes, well, George Bennett can do it. You know, we've seen a renaissance back in middle distance athletic. Nick Willis suddenly comes back and says, hey, I can win. And now you look at the depth of 1,500 metre running in this country, it's remarkable.
Oh, it definitely shifts the mentality, doesn't it? It takes it to that level, and you've seen this young kid from Nelson develop over the last 10 years to an absolute world-class athlete. The rest of them following, Finn's just thinking, well, I can do that, and some. I'm there, and I'll be chasing that over the next few years as he develops as an athlete. But he's developing as an athlete with a whole bunch of kids around him all doing the same thing.
And I want to go back to that because we have talked about a lot of young guys in the peloton that are 18, 19 that are probably where George Bennett was back in 2013 when he finished second. Just run through some of those names that we're likely to see at the front end or the pointy end of the peloton that are going to be well established in the World Tour in, say, 6-7 years from now.
Well, we can start with Lawrence Pithy. We know the talent in which he brings to cycling. It's not necessarily he's fast. It's not necessarily he can just about do anything. He's just signed a contract with FDJ. So, you know, you've got guys like that are going to just really establish the depth of New Zealand cycling. Who else have we got going World Tour?
Well, we've got the boys. We've got this amount of these guys sitting at that Conti level that we've never had before.
Yes.
We've always just had 1s and 2s and 3s go through there. Now we're looking like we've actually got a base. There's 20 New Zealanders over there racing at that level, and they know that we can move another whole bunch of them up.
And take that next step up. So we never even used to have that base, that Division 2 base. Now we've got that, and then, you know, it might not be all 20 that go to the World Tour, but we got a base that we can actually take. Okay, maybe next step is we take 5.
But we've also got guys like yourself involved now with the World Tour teams in a managerial role, including the likes of Julie and Dean. And so therefore you guys too can sort of say, hey, look, don't just look at Australia, look across the ditch too. We've got some pretty talented guys. Guys can come to you and go, hey, what's this young kid like? And you can go, look, I'll give you an honest appraisal of this kid's class.
Yeah, 100%. You know? That's half of my job on Israel Startup Nation is show some talent to the guys. I've done 4 or 5 introductions, you know, over line, who then speak to our head director or a general manager. So it's things like that. You did right, and they do because guys like us have been there and raced at the top level. We see talent coming through, and then we get to display that now. And then they do listen from New Zealand. They know now that the level of racing in New Zealand is very, very high, so that they know that someone to win or place or be consistently at the top here in New Zealand, they know they're good bike riders.
Yeah, and it's important though, isn't it? Because, you know, there's so many, sport is a profession these days, and we were talking earlier, Greg, and we won't go into the numbers, but you can make a very, very good living as a professional bike rider on the World Tour now, and you're looking at it going, well, I can make really good money as a cricketer, exceptional money, and it's probably a little bit easier. I don't really have to suffer too much. You can make a lot of money as a rugby player, and you're going, well, yeah, but you can actually make a lot of money now as a cyclist, and there is a pathway, and it's been established, and this is the level, you know. Do well at a schoolboy level, learn the technical side of it, do quite well at a domestic level, start sort of stepping up a little bit, then maybe look at a continental type team, race a little bit, and then, you know, there's this natural progression that's been put in place, and so the pathway is there. Clearly there'll be the talent guys that'll skip some of that development and go, you know, a lot quicker, a lot sooner.
That's the key word there, the pathway, and like that's the thing that we actually didn't have was the pathway. You had to find your own way over there and then hope for the best. So, you know, I raced in America for a little while, and I got bored of racing in America, and it was like, I need another challenge, you know, and it was like, I finally got this chance with T-Mobile. But the way I had to do it wasn't I talked to friends or anything like that and then got an appraisal from someone else. It was like I had to win the biggest races, you know, I had to win in front of the general managers. So, and that's how I got my way over there.
Oh, exactly. Look, you know, sitting in France, there's still kids over there that we're going to be racing in amateur teams, France and Belgium stuff. You can be right on the cusp and still have no idea how to take that next step. But now we've got these, you know, people in managerial roles and so forth that we can actually create those connections
But
for
also,
them.
Turn, I think, you know, it's just tough sport. And we've seen, George talked a little bit about some of the adversities he had to go through, finishing second a lot of times, and this guy's here to win. So, you know, for him it is adversity. But let's take a guy like Patrick Bevan, who came on as a young guy. A lot of people talked him up. He went across to the States, raced over there, didn't really think, sort of came back and had a bit of a break, and everybody thought, oh, you know, here's a talent that might not kick on. But you know what? He worked through the adversity. His passion and desire came through. And now look what he's doing, Greg Henderson.
Yeah,
he is class.
He's matured as a bike rider, there's no question, because he had talent from such a young age, and that's one thing that you have to do. You have to nurture it. You know, you can't just send them out into the wild and hope for the best. And he's an absolute, you know, he's an example of that.
Just trying to get a photo of the boys.
He's a talent, and the reason is though he's matured as a bike rider now, and you know, I had a conversation with him early last year actually, because he knew his team was folding, and I said, look, are you interested in, because we're talking about, you know, developing Israel. As you know, we've signed some pretty big names, and we'd like you to be part of it. He was instantly interested, you know. He was really, really keen, and just he was really, and it was nice. I got a really nice message from him a couple of months later after the deal was done. He said, thanks very much, you know.
And so let's take a guy like Patrick Bevan, who's an all-rounder. How does he slot into your team? If he rides the Tour de France and you've got Chris Froome on board, how do we use him? How do you use him?
Well, he's used in many ways. He's not just, you can't pigeonhole a guy like Patrick Bevan, because he's got such an amazing power profile. So his time trial, for example, we might line him up in Paris-Nice, which is a really prestigious 7-day tour, which might have an opening prologue. And he could take the yellow jersey for us. He might not go on to win the tour, but the fact that we actually get to ride the yellow jersey. So we'll put him in a position like that. A race like the Tour Down Under, he's nearly won it before, you know. He's got that power for uphill for up to 8 to 10 minutes, you know. So he can win races like that. So Tour Down Under was going to be on his schedule this year. And then...
Because he's been in the Oka jersey before, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He sort of, he crashed or...
That's right. Yeah, he
so
crashed
close.
on the last day.
So close. He can take a 1 week... You know, a 1 week tour in the World Tour, can't he?
Yeah, I think he could definitely take the jersey anyway. It's like, it just depends. I don't think he's not the George Bennett type climber that can climb for 35, 40 minutes, but anything up to 10 minutes, he's world class. And then again, he's got a very, very good aerodynamic profile also. So we saw that when he finished 4th at the World Championships in the individual time trial. So he's such a diverse rider that we were looking at him, we were going, they actually said to me, hey, Hendy, how does he go on the classics? Because we want him to help Sepp van Marke, you know, because he has the power profiles. They're looking at his data. And I'm going, well, you know, if we gave him a couple of years, he could actually definitely be really, really good.
Okay, we just got some news coming through that Michael Vink, who finished, I think, 3rd overall, has been actually relegated due to the sprint, altercation in the sprint. So Michael Vink will end up finishing just relegated out of the podium. So we will have that podium presentation. We'll confirm those results for you shortly. So that is just breaking news. You would have seen it in that sprint finish. There was a bit of a clash. I mean, these guys are so fatigued. You know, you can't really blame Michael for that. So I think Christensen now comes onto the program. So you'll be pleased with that, Greg Henderson?
Oh, look, that's a shame, really, because it's not malicious. It wasn't a malicious move. And it's like you said, they're all fatigued. And they're probably cross-eyed and doing a sprint. It's not like it was a malicious move to try and stop someone from getting on the podium. It was just completely out of fatigue. And unfortunately, he's deviated from the line. He's stopped Ryan Christensen from advancing, and Ryan Christensen then gets promoted.
So Ryan Christensen 3rd, Michael Torkler 2nd, George Bennett 1st, and then Mark Stewart, the Scotsman, because he's Scottish, he's not eligible for the jersey, was technically 2nd across the line overall.
He gets a free beer tonight.
So he gets a free beer from the boys tonight. Just going back to our discussion, just regarding, I've always been curious about this, and a lot of people always ask me it. Do you send riders up the road for television time for sponsors reasons?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you see it on every year in the Tour de France. Yeah. You get the French continental teams.
If you're French.
You know,
if you're French, you do.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to get them out there. You know you're not going to be maybe at the point end of the race.
So on those flat stages early on, where you know it's going to be the first week of the Tour, it's like, let's just go get a bit of TV time, boys. Let's get Jumbo Visma out there, or let's get, you know, your particular thing. Let's get to me. Because, you know, I'd imagine with your Israel startup, you know, that would have a bit of interest in that part of the world.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
And sense of pride, eh?
Absolutely. And what happens is, I think, as the team evolves and develops, it begins with, it's like, absolutely, get out in the breakaway. We put 2 guys in the break in the Giro, and apparently it was the most viewed television in Israel on that day.
Yeah.
You know, so it does. But then if you've got a major objective, if you've got a top captain sprinter or a GC man, then of course you don't waste any matches.
You're never going to put commercial decisions over performance decisions, are you? But when you sit back down at the table with these major sponsors, you still need to be able to go back to them and go, look, we did give you this much TV time. It went to this bigger audience and it reached this many people.
100%.
And you can't underestimate that.
100%.
What do you think? You know, we've had this little altercation here at the finish. Unfortunate, absolutely, really unfortunate. Hendy, you've been, you know, you must have been on both sides within teams. Have been on both sides of these decisions. I mean, how do they affect you?
Yeah, it's like I said before. It's a sprint. You know, it's not a massive bunch sprint. But again, you could just tell when you look at it, it wasn't malicious. You know, and I've been on the end of someone trying to put me over the barriers or something that someone's just accidentally deviated off the line, and you know, no 2 ways about it. This was not malicious. This was just out of pure fatigue, and it's such a shame because I think all of them deserve the medal. Like let's be honest, they all rode their backsides off today, and it's just really unfortunate that. But I mean, Vic can still hold his head high. He picked up a bronze on Friday. And, you know, he might have been double bronze medalist.
Look, he's a quality bike rider.
A quality
bike rider. He's won all the big races here. He's reliable. He's talked about. He's a hard worker. I mean, I remember early in those early years in Christchurch, you know, he was an under 23, and he just took the race by storm. You know, he was just the strongest rider that day, and you know, just fearless.
Exactly.
Just got X factor and talent for Africa. You know, I think he was back under Terry Jide back then. Yeah.
Look, I mean, we've talked about the talent pool that we've got today, and look, there is another guy who, you know, hasn't given up, and maybe there is still a day here for him to get back up, to get up onto that level. I mean, he's, you know, the guys that cleaned out that time trial on Friday, they were so far clear. It showed the level that they are at, and they are all capable World Tour riders.
So how does it play out now for a guy like George Bennett? What happens over the next month, Greg?
Yeah, it all depends on race program, but it's got to be, now he's still in a build process. Like he's got to be concentrating on his upcoming races, and he'll know his race schedule, so that's fine, and he'll just be focusing 100% on his upcoming schedule. Like I said, the Giro looks like it's a target, a goal for him.
He really wants that Olympics, doesn't he?
And again, he's an absolute contender for a podium on the Olympics for us too. So yeah, it's great to see him win today. But like he said in his post-race interview, it's not the biggest race on his calendar, but it's probably one of the most important races because he knows the value of the national title.
Yeah, but also too, once you finish your career in your 20 years and you sort of start to get towards 50 and 60, Greg, like you'd know. I'm sorry, talking about myself. But you look back and legacy becomes a bit more important, and things that you do at a national level, you do start to look back and go, there's Jack Swart, there's some of these great names of New Zealand cycling, my name sits alongside of them now, whether it be at track nationals, whether it be the National Road Championship. And so, sometimes what you might not necessarily think is important in the here and now becomes very important later on. And sometimes you just need people to remind you. That's not the case with George. He knows what it means.
Oh, exactly. Look, and we're a small nation. We've talked about it, what we have to do to get over there and race this sport. And, so you really feel that when you're over there. And it's so good to be able to come home and just deliver some of this in front of your home crowd.
Yeah, I definitely feel a little bit for Vink because, if we talk about nostalgia and what it means down the track with your career, it was a hard day today, and then to have something taken away from you 50 metres from the finish line.
The thing is, he won the National Road Championships one year, but he was under 23, and I think James Williamson ended up taking the title overall, didn't he, as the first elite athlete across the line. So he sort of goes in under 23, and that's one of those sort of anomalies, I guess, that goes with the UCI and goes with cycling, a little bit like I did a radio interview yesterday, and I was asked why the under 23 champion, Finn Fisher-Black's not given the title overall.
Yeah, if you decide to race for, like, Finn could put his hand up and go, yes, I'd like to, but then he can't ever go back and race under 23, so that excludes him for under 23 worlds, any under 23 national title. So there was a guy, Lucas Plapp, who actually did it for Australia. He voted to go, and he won the national time trial title in Australia. He put a minute to Luke Durbridge, but he's actually still under 23, so he could have vouched to still race for the U23.
Okay, so there's still debate going on over this disqualification of Michael Vink, or not disqualification, relegation. So we're going to bring you a replay. And I'll get Greg Henderson to talk through this. So Michael Vink's in the pink, or the red.
He's opened up the sprint there, hasn't he?
What you do is you look at the middle line and how much are they deviating from the middle line. That's an indication of how many people. So you can see he's on the left-hand side of that line now. Does he stay on that left-hand side of the line? If we look now, there's two moves. He's gone quite and there. So if you look at him, he was probably 50, 60 centimetres outside that yellow line, that white line, painted white line. That's what you look at. And then he's gone almost to the inside. There is some deviation there.
Enough of a deviation to be...
Unfortunately, yes.
Is he thinking about Torkler there, or is he thinking about Christensen as he goes past them?
So what rights does Christensen have here?
None at the moment. Not until he gets up on him.
Here he is. He's outside wide of that white line. Head down. He's not even taking any notice of anyone. It's just head down, and now he's back over the white line, unfortunately.
Okay, so that is Greg Henderson's ruling on it, and that's where we understand the commissaires and stuff are at with it at the moment. We will have it confirmed, but just some analysis here. It's still being debated, though. And as we said, there's no malice here. These guys are just exhausted. They're fatigued.
Yeah, and you can see, you could see there really, Vink and Torkler are looking at each other. Christensen's trying to come through a gap. Maybe he could have taken a different line and he could have changed the result himself by, going the other side of the wheel.
Yep, but I think, not unfortunately, there are rules for sprinting for a reason.
How hard is it, though, Greg? I mean, you've been a lead-out rider for a lot of guys, but you've actually, you won a stage in the Tour of Spain where you ended up winning that sprint. I mean, that level of race, that level of fatigue, I mean, how easy is it to stay in a straight line? Is it, or you just got to learn to do it under all duress? No matter what the thing is, you've just got to learn to do it.
So what we always used to do in those situations was put your head down and sprint down a barrier, so that you knew that they could only pass you on one side of the road, and you knew where the left-hand side, or if you were sprinting down the left barrier, you knew you couldn't go any further left, so you were going to hold a straight line. So you stick, what I always used to say is stay to one side of the road and sprint down one side of the road. Then they can only pass you from one, so you don't have to look both sides. Vinks had to step out there. He stepped out beyond the white line, and that's your guideline. That's your straight line. And you see he stepped out past it, so he's actually heading out in a left direction. And unfortunately, he's gone 50, 60 centimetres out beyond it. And then you can see if we slow motion it, he then comes back to the right and impedes. This is, I guess, is the other question. Did he impede the progression of another rider?
So if the rider was sort of further back and hadn't maybe got up alongside of them, or you didn't sense, then that's probably okay. You know, talking about the barrier, I always remember that was the Abdu-Japarov, that famous crash on the Champs-Elysees where someone, what was it?
Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov.
What was that in the 1990s, wasn't it? One of the most, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, I'm not sure what you put into YouTube, but go and watch that. Absolutely horrific.
He had his head down on the Champs-Elysees sprinting, and that's when they didn't have these fences or anything like that. They just had big Coke bollards. And the crowd's right there, and he had his head down, and he just rode straight into a Coke bollard.
Just imploded.
70k an hour, and he's doing like stomach spins for
A couple of gendarmes in the mix.
Exactly.
Okay, now we are getting ready for the podium, so when we cross there, Andrew Dewhurst with the official ceremony, the under-23s, and then, of course, bringing up the elites. So let's throw it over to Andrew Dewhurst with the official presentations.
Thanks, Mark, and apologies for the delay with the commissaires investigating that finish as has been described. We can, though, carry on with our presentations with the under-23 men's race, but also our annual presentations of significance to Cycling New Zealand, looking back on the year 2020. And our awards will be presented by Erin Criglington on behalf of Cycling New Zealand. Our first award is for the Junior Road Cyclist of the Year. And our winner impressed with consistency across the compressed 2020 season, with a victory at the Vantage National Road Championships being a highlight. Ladies and gentlemen, the Junior Road Cyclist of the Year is Jack Drage. Congratulations, Jack. The next award is Emerging Talent for 2020. Impressing with a transition into the European peloton with performances across the season demonstrating huge future potential. Rewarded with selection to the 2020 World Road Champs. The Emerging Talent for 2020, Finn Fisher-Black. Congratulations, Finn. On now to a recognition of the Male Road Cyclist of the Year. In reviewing nominations, the panel made special mention of riding the world's biggest races alongside the best riders in the world, with particular mention of your first place at Grand Piedmont and your second place at one of the sport's monuments, the Il Lombardia. Your support of GC riders at Grand Tours capped off an amazing, amazing year. Just got better today too, didn't it? Your Male Road Cyclist of the Year is George Bennett. Congratulations, George. A couple of photo opportunities out there, and we'll see you in a few moments again. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to welcome you to the awards ceremony for the 2021 Vantage Under-23 Men's Road Race. Can you put your hands together and welcome our podium onto the stage? Medals will be presented by Matt Archibald on behalf of Vantage Windows and Doors. In third place, and winner of the bronze medal representing Groupama FDJ, Ruben Thompson. In second place, and the winner of the silver medal, representing Fruzio iLab Development, Keegan Hornblow. In first place, the winner of the gold medal and the 2021 Vantage Under-23 Men's Road Race National Champion, representing New Zealand Cycling Project, Jack Drage. Jack also receives the New Zealand Cyclist Corps Memorial Trophy, presented by Tony Mitchell, Chair of the Cycling New Zealand Board. A wonderful trophy that has some wonderful history. That's going to show off your guns now, Jack. Put your hands together again for our podium. And Jack, you might want to place the trophy down because there is now some champagne, and then jump back up. Matt presenting the champagne. Oh, Matt, get out of there. One more time, folks. Well done. Congratulations. Jack, step on down very carefully, and I'll get a quick word with you as the other boys make their way off. Come and step forward here, mate. Congratulations, well done. Tell me about the ride today, the conditions, how tough was it, and did you always know where you were on the road? Because sometimes tough when the under-23s are in amongst the elites.
Yeah, it was a really tough race, but huge thanks to the team. Like, we had George up there with me, and we had a real good team plan before the race, and it was just all thanks to them.
Yeah, and that was always going to be a key today. The Mitre Q boys, you got it together and it went to plan?
Oh, yeah, we had a good solid plan last night. And yeah, it's just a big thanks to them, like, and James and Roman for driving. It's just, yeah, so great to have those guys supporting me.
Fantastic, well done. One for the future and one for today. Put your hands together again, Jack Drage. Seriously, that is a heavy trophy. Very special one, though, as well. Well, welcome now to the award ceremony for the 2021 Vantage Elite Men's Road Race National Championship, as we welcome our podium athletes onto the stage. Put your hands together, folks, and welcome them all up here onto the stage for our final presentation today. Medals will be presented by Matt Archibald from Vantage Windows and Doors. In third place, and the winner of the bronze medal from GD Pringle Spoken Cycles, it's Michael Torkler. In second place, and the winner of the silver medal, representing Ribble Welltile Pro out of Scotland by way of New Zealand here during lockdown, it's Mark Stewart. In first place, the winner of the gold medal and the 2021 Vantage Elite Men's Road Race National Champion, representing Jumbo Visma, George Bennett. George will also receive the NZACA Road Championship Cup, presented by Tony Mitchell, Chair of Cycling New Zealand. And a photo opportunity before the champagne arrives. Well done, fellas. Eyes up as we do that while we're all looking okay. Here comes the champagne. before they get messy. And Matt Archibald with the champagne. They're trying to synchronise. Here we go. Put your hands together in celebration. Your podium. Fantastic. George, we had a great chat earlier. I'm just going to ask you if you've got anything else to add, family, friends, supporters, anything else you want to say. Come and step forward. It's had about 20 minutes to sink in, but really the floor is yours.
Oh, I just want to say again, thanks everyone, all the support out there. And again, I've had a pretty special crew up here in Cambridge with me. Great crew from Nelson and people that have been there from the start of my career. You know, when I was 15 and picked up the bike, you know, I've had these guys have supported me all the way, and you know, they were in the car, they were in the feed zone, they were fixing my bikes, they were, you know, and of course a special mention to my partner Caitlin. She's been, you know, she's been really awesome, and I definitely wouldn't have had the success I've had without her at the moment. So again, thanks to everybody, and thanks to the organisers. You know, great event, and everyone have a safe trip home, and we'll see you next year. I'm off to Europe, so I'm going to miss New Zealand.
Good stuff. George Bennett, ladies and gentlemen. We wish you well, George, on your travels. And that just about wraps us up here. For those in the event village, stay with us. We've got one presentation still to make. But on behalf of the entire team, for those watching on Sky Sport Next and those here with us live, on behalf of a wonderful commentary team, Greg Henderson, Mark Watson, and a very special guest this afternoon, Tim Gudsell, our amazing camera crew. It's been a testing day, testing for the riders, and a tough day out there for the crew as well. Thank you for watching, wherever you might be. We'll see you next time.